Chapter 10-15. Poisoned and Unconscious. 3. Haha. What's the purpose of letting them prepare their own materials? Have you forgotten? If the other artificers are willing to use the supreme-grade void stone, they can also use it. However, they did not, so how can they blame others? Vice President Yin, don't you even understand this logic? Lu Feng sneered. Among the artificers participating in the competition, many of them came from top families. However, they were not willing to use the supreme-grade void stone. Therefore, even if they lost, they could not blame others. Lu Feng is right. The purpose of letting them prepare their own materials is also to test their ability. If an artifact master can't even obtain the materials, there's no future for them. Moreover, no one forced them to participate in the competition with low-level materials. If they lose, they lose. There's no need for Vice President Yin to find any excuses for them. Mo Yen chuckled. But this won't be able to find out the true genius artificer. Yin Rume refused to give up. Vice President Yin, whether a blacksmith can succeed is one thing, but personal opportunities are equally important. If they don't have good opportunities, their starting point can only be lower than others. Therefore, let's not discuss this matter anymore, Mo Yen said decisively. President Liu, go and announce the results. Mo Yen instructed President Liu, who was trembling in fear. Yes, President Liu quickly replied. Then, he immediately left the conference room. As he left, President Liu still had a lingering fear. Ooh, there were still 3 more matches. If the 3 of them were to argue like this every time, then they would have a huge problem on their hands. After the second round of results came out, Leng Ruoxue and the others were extremely calm and did not celebrate. After all, the materials used by the old man Zhao were superior after all. If he could not get first place even after this, there was no need to participate in this competition. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue and the others had just eaten dinner and were chatting in the garden. Butler, what's the matter? Leng Ruoxue saw the timid butler standing not far away from the corner of her eye and couldn't help but ask in amusement. Were they that scary? Now, Di Ren's butler was like a mouse seeing a cat when he saw them. Miss Leng Ruoxue wants to find Lord Leng Xiaoyu, the butler said fearfully, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. Please keep reading on OIB0's novel. .com. What did you say? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. I said, I wonder if His Excellency Leng Xiaoyu is here. He seems to have gone out. The butler wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Butler, you did well this time, Leng Xiaoyu praised. Your Excellency Leng Xiaoyu, are you meeting her or not? The butler asked carefully. Little Shuer, what do you think? Leng Xiaoyu looked at Leng Ruoxue and asked. Old ancestor, you can decide for yourself. Anyway, she's not here to see us. Leng Ruoxue smiled evilly. Little Shuer, are you really not going to care about me? Leng Xiaoyu said aggrievedly. Cheap sake, old ancestor, I can't help you with relationships. This kind of thing has to be resolved by the person involved. If I interfere, you'll be looking for trouble, Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. All right then. I'll go see her one last time and clear things up with her, Leng Xiaoyu said helplessly. With that, he left the courtyard. However, he never returned. Leng Ruoxue and the others did not see Leng Xiaoyu return even when they were resting. Did anything happen to the cheap sake old ancestor? Leng Ruoxue muttered to the freak worriedly before bed. This is the Artificer Association, and he's Mo Yan's beloved disciple. What can happen? The freak said disapprovingly. Leng Xiaoyu was also scheming. Ordinary people could not scheme against him. Yes, that's true. Leng Ruoxue thought about it and went to sleep. The next day, Leng Ruoxue and the others left the room and saw Fu Ran standing alone in the courtyard, as if he was waiting for them. However, he hesitated when he saw them. Fu Ran, what's the matter? Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but ask curiously. These few days, Fu Ran had been very quiet in her room and rarely came out to move around. Why did she come out today? Shuer, do you have any pills to cure the aphrodisiac? Fu Ran asked after some thought. Please keep reading on OIB0's novel. .com. What kind of aphrodisiac? Who was poisoned? Lung Ruoxu's curiosity was piqued and her beautiful eyes sized up Fu Ran. Could it be that Fu Ran was poisoned? It didn't look like it. Aphrodisiac was also a type of aphrodisiac. However, its effects were better than aphrodisiacs. Furthermore, aphrodisiacs were no longer effective against cultivators of their level. However, aphrodisiacs were different. Aphrodisiacs were a type of potent aphrodisiac that someone had specially developed to target the physique of gods. After being poisoned by the aphrodisiac, even a god would have to endure the unbearable torture. The aphrodisiac had an antidote, but the materials used were extremely precious. Ordinary people could not take it out, let alone refine it. Don't worry about who it is. If you have an antidote, give me one. I need it urgently, Fu Ran said anxiously. You can't take the antidote randomly. You have to know that there are many types of aphrodisiacs with differing antidote is naturally the same. Therefore, we can't help you if you don't let us see this person, Lung Ruoxue explained. Really? Fu Ran was skeptical. He was good at refining weapons, but he was a layman when it came to alchemy, and he had never been poisoned by the aphrodisiac, so he couldn't tell if Lung Ruoxue was telling the truth. If you don't believe me, ask Jing En. He's an alchemist. Lung Ruoxue pulled Jing En in front of Fu Ran and said, Even though Fu Ran didn't dare to believe her, Jing En was her savior. He would probably believe him. Really? Fu Ran asked carefully. Xiao Yu had specially told her that his descendant was a little fox, so she had to be careful not to fall for it. Yes, really. Jing En braced himself. However, when he saw Fu Ran's trusting look, he couldn't help but feel a little guilty. However, he didn't dare not to follow Miss' words. In fact, there were many types of aphrodisiac, as Miss had said. The herbs needed to refine the aphrodisiac were as precious as the herbs used for its antidote. Some could not even be bought with money. Therefore, unless it was a particularly top-notch family, no one would be willing to use so many good herbs to refine the aphrodisiac that everyone despised. Many alchemists with a sense of justice and conscience would not refine such harmful things. Therefore, there were actually not many aphrodisiacs around. Chapter 10:16 Poisoned and Unconscious 4. Then what should we do? Fu Ran asked, feeling a little troubled. After all, he had promised the person who was poisoned by the aphrodisiac that he would not let anyone know about this. Who is that person? Or you can take us to see him and then give us the right medicine, Lung Ruoxue coaxed. To be honest, she was even more curious when she saw Fu Ran's troubled and conflicted expression. That person is Xiao Yu, Fu Ran said after hesitating for a moment. Even though Xiao Yu didn't want him to say this, there was no other way now. He couldn't just watch Xiao Yu die in pain. What did you say? Lung Ruoxue narrowed her eyes and asked coldly. Xiao Yu was poisoned, but he didn't allow me to tell you, Fu Ran whispered. Then, she lowered her head and didn't dare to look at Lung Ruoxue and the others. Boo! These people's gazes were too terrifying, as if they wanted to eat people. Where is he now? Take us there quickly. Lung Ruoxue said anxiously. Being poisoned by the aphrodisiac was no joke. Unless he immediately found a woman to detoxify it, it was impossible to hold on. Moreover, his life would be in danger if it went on for too long. In my room, Fu Ran said quickly. Then, everyone rushed to his room. When she reached Fu Ran's room, Lung Ruoxue pushed the door open anxiously. Cheap Sake old ancestor, after rushing into the room and seeing the handsome man lying on the bed in a coma, the anger in her heart soared to the highest point. What's going on? Why is he like this? Lung Ruoxue roughly pulled Fu Ran over and questioned. Her cheap Sake old ancestor was fine when he left last night. How did he become like this today? Please keep reading on MIB0's novel. The calm Lung Xiaoyu was lying on the bed. His face was haggard and dark red. There were scratches on his arms and a pile of wet clothes on the floor. It was obvious that they had just been changed. I don't know either. He only came to me when it was almost dawn. He was already a little delirious at that time. He couldn't say anything when I asked him. However, he asked me to look for you and promised me that he wouldn't let you know about this. Fu Ran quickly explained. Boo! Shuer was so scary when she was angry. What else did he say? Leng Ruoxue asked after calming down. You even said you were a little fox and told me not to be fooled by you, Fu Ran said honestly. Leng Ruoxue was speechless. Then she couldn't help but roar, tell me something useful. No. Fu Ran shook her head. Xiao Yu's mind was delirious sometimes. It was not easy for him to say this. Jing'en Grandpa Du, how is he? While Leng Ruoxue was asking Fu Ran, Jing'en and the little old man had already gone forward to check on Leng Xiaoyu. Master and disciple looked at each other, then both sighed and shook their heads. The poison is too deep. There is nothing we can do. Damn it, Ruhua, I won't let you off. Leng Ruoxue said fiercely. Other than Ruhua, she couldn't think of anyone else who would do this. After all, after Leng Xiaoyu left the courtyard yesterday, the person he went to see was Ruhua. Now she regretted not stopping her cheap sake old ancestor from seeing that woman. Shuer, don't blame yourself. Our cheap sake old ancestor won't want to see you like this. The telepathic freak sensed Shuer's emotions and quickly comforted her. Okay. Leng Ruoxue nodded calmly and then sat by the bed to observe her ancestor's situation. Leng Xiaoyu was indeed poisoned too deeply as Jing'en and his disciple had said. However, she believed that there would definitely be a way to save her ancestor. Feng De, go and invite Mo Yen over, Leng Ruoxue suddenly instructed. Mo Yen was the master of her cheap sake old ancestor. How could she not inform him about this? Yes, miss, Feng De replied and turned to leave. Not long after, Mo Yen, who had already received Feng De's notice, was the first to rush into Fu Ran's room anxiously. Lu Feng and Feng De followed closely behind. When Mo Yen saw Leng Xiaoyu lying on the bed, the anger in his heart was instantly ignited. Damn it! How could this happen? Looking at his beloved disciple who was unconscious, his heart ached like a knife. How dare he do such a thing to his disciple? He would never let him off. The culprit was dead meat no matter who it was. Please keep reading on OIB0's novel.com. What's going on, little fox? Lu Feng asked in surprise. If I'm not wrong, it should be Ruhua's doing. Perhaps her master is also an accomplice, Leng Ruoxue said bluntly. Chapter 1017, Black-Bellied Old Man Zhao, 1. Ruhua in Rumit. I won't let you off, Mo Yen said coldly. Then, he turned to Leng Ruoxue and the others and asked, Little girl, do you have any ideas? Not yet. The cheap sake old ancestor has been poisoned deeply, Leng Ruoxue said helplessly. In fact, she didn't know much about aphrodisiac. After all, this poison didn't exist in Lingfeng or the boundless heaven continent, so she didn't know much about it. However, she had heard Qingju mention it once, so she knew about its existence. Thinking of this, Leng Ruoxue sent a voice transmission to Qingju. Qingju, do you have any good ideas for the cheap sake old ancestor's poison? Even though Qingju was an artifact spirit, he was quite knowledgeable and proficient in all kinds of medicinal villages. Therefore, it was better to ask him than anyone else. Let me think about it, elder sister, Qingju replied. Then he frowned as he thought back carefully. Alas, there were so many things in his mind that he couldn't quite remember. Okay. Leng Ruoxue nodded imperceptibly, then cut off her connection with Qingju so as not to disturb him. Cheap sake old ancestor, sleep for the time being. I'll think of a way to wake you up. Leng Ruoxue walked out of the room. Seeing this, the freak quickly followed. When Feng De and the others saw that Miss did not call them and went out alone, they were a little worried and followed. Lu Feng, go and take a look too. In Rume isn't that easy to deal with, Mo Yen pleaded softly. Alright, don't worry. With me around, I won't let In Rume bully that little fox. However, what about today's competition? Lu Feng asked. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel.com. The competition will continue, Mo Yen said after some thought. He knew how proud his disciple was. Xiao Yu wouldn't want anyone to know that he was in this state, so he definitely couldn't let outsiders know about this, much less spread any news. Otherwise, he wouldn't mind starting a massacre. Lu Feng, other than that girl's people, anyone who knows about this in the courtyard should be dealt with. Mo Yen said again. He could not let his disciple's reputation be damaged because of this matter. Okay, Lu Feng said, nodding. His Excellency Mo Yen, His Excellency Lu Feng, other than Shuer and me, no one else knows that Xiaoyu was poisoned, Fu Ran quickly explained. Even though there weren't many attendants in the courtyard, he couldn't just watch innocent people get implicated because of this. However, he didn't know if the two of them would listen to him, but he had to say what he had to say. Are you sure? Mo Yen asked through half-closed eyes. Yes, Xiaoyu originally didn't want me to tell Shuer about this, but when I went to ask Shuer for the antidote, she tricked me out, so, Fu Ran said a little gloomily. Now, he had already figured out that he had been deceived by Shuer. How can you defeat that little fox? Lu Feng said sympathetically. Even he was no match for that little fox, let alone an honest guy like Fu Ran. Fu Ran was speechless and couldn't help but smile bitterly. In that case, let them go. However, no one can know about this, Mo Yen said coldly. There's nothing wrong with us, but Ruhua. Fu Ran stopped mid-sentence. Don't worry. If Ruhua really did it, she won't dare to say anything, Lu Feng said with certainty. Ruhua wasn't stupid. It wouldn't do her any good to say anything. Besides, if there wasn't enough evidence, Ruhua probably wouldn't admit it. Of course she wouldn't dare to say anything unless she doesn't want to stay in the Artificer Association anymore, Mo Yen said with a look of disdain. Like master, like disciple. This master and disciple were simply a nest of snakes and rats. They were both bad people. I wonder if Little Fox can catch Ruhua's weakness. That woman in Rume is very sinister. Why don't I go and take a look? Lu Feng suggested. This isn't the time for us to step in. Don't make things worse, Mo Yen said helplessly. I just want to help. How can I be causing trouble? Lu Feng muttered aggrievedly. Don't I understand you? There's no need for us to deal with Ruhua. Why don't you keep an eye on Inrume? Mo Yen thought for a moment and said, Inrume, they'll send someone to keep an eye on her. Lu Feng hurriedly said. He didn't want to personally keep an eye on that annoying woman. Otherwise, if she found out, that woman would think that he had a crush on her. Just thinking about it made him afraid. Please keep reading on MIB0's novel.com. That works too, Mo Yen said with a nod. He had not wanted Lu Feng to keep an eye on him personally. I'll arrange it right away, Lu Feng said and left. Lung Ruoxue and the others arrived at Ruhua's residence in large strides. Feng Da and Ching Wu kicked open the door together and everyone walked in without letting anyone inform them of their arrival. Who are you? How can you barge into my lattice residence? After hearing the noise, a maidservant ran out from the inner courtyard and shouted, Get out of my way! Lu Tao shouted, and then kicked the maidservant in front of them roughly. However, on second thought, she grabbed the unlucky maidservant and threatened fiercely, Take us to your lady. No, I don't. The maid was about to say that she didn't dare, but before she could finish, Lu Tao slapped the maid's face. With that, half of the maidservant's face swelled up. Are you taking us or not? Lu Tao demanded. But Miss hasn't woken up yet. I don't dare to disturb her. The maidservant cried. She felt wronged. Boo. Her miss was gentle, considerate and understanding in front of others, but behind the scenes, she was an extremely hot-tempered, unruly and sinister person. Therefore, she knew very well what would happen to her if she woke her miss up now. You don't dare? Then tell us where your lattice room is. We won't make things difficult for you, Lu Tao suddenly said with a smile. Chapter 10:18, Black-Bellied Old Man Zhao, 2. The maidservant was a little hesitant. These people were clearly here to seek revenge. If she betrayed Miss, even if these people let her go, they would probably not be able to escape Miss' vicious hands. Boo! What should she do? If you don't say it now, you'll die. If you say it, you might have a chance of survival, Lu Tao threatened. Lu Tao, deal with it directly. This courtyard isn't big, let's find it ourselves, Lung Ruoxue suddenly said. Yes, miss. Lu Tao hurriedly replied. Then, she looked apologetically at the trembling maidservant and said, I'm sorry, you don't have to say it. No. Don't kill me. I'll tell you, the maidservant cried quickly. An unpleasant smell wafted from her at the same time. "You're so useless," Lu Tao said in disdain. She did not expect the maidservant to be so frightened that she lost control of her bladder. "Ooh, Miss Room is in the third room in the inner courtyard." The maidservant cried, but she felt extremely aggrieved. Ooh, she didn't want this to happen either. After hearing the maidservant's words, Lu Tao threw the unlucky maidservant in her hand to the ground and followed everyone into the inner courtyard. The third room in the inner courtyard was the best and largest room in the inner courtyard. When they arrived at the door of the third room, Leng Ruoxue gave Feng De a look. Feng De understood and immediately kicked the door open with his foot. Then, everyone walked into the room together. Please keep reading on OIB Zero's novel. Leng Ruoxue and the others had just walked into the room when they smelled a strange smell in the room. This smell was very pungent, and everyone couldn't help covering their noses. "Who is it?" Ruhua asked subconsciously when she heard the sound. However, she was lying on the bed and couldn't be bothered to open her eyes. At this moment, her entire body felt uncomfortable. Leng Ruoxue raised her beautiful eyes to size up Ruhua on the bed. She saw that Ruhua looked extremely weak, her face flushed and full of spring. Her arms and shoulders that were exposed outside the blanket were covered in green and purple marks. She knew what had happened without thinking. However, Leng Ruoxue did not understand who did Ruhua last night. Moreover, the room was filled with the smell of aphrodisiac. Feng De and the others might not be able to smell it, but as an alchemist, it was not difficult to recognize this smell. "Miss Ruhua must have enjoyed yourself yesterday," Leng Ruoxue said with a light smile, but her beautiful eyes were cold. "Who is it?" Ruhua couldn't help asking again, but her eyes were still unwilling to open. "Won't you know if you open your eyes and take a look?" Leng Ruoxue said lightly. Looking at Feng De and the others' disdainful expressions, she knew that she didn't have to hope that they would go forward and wake up Ruhua, who was exhausted. "It's you. Why are you in my room?" Ruhua reluctantly opened her eyes after hearing Leng Ruoxue's words. However, when she saw Leng Ruoxue in front of her, the hatred in her eyes burst out without hiding. "What do you think?" Leng Ruoxue asked instead of answering. How would I know?" Ruhua whispered guiltily. She accidentally saw the existence of Feng De and the others and realized that the room was actually filled with people. "Damn it, who allowed you to barge into my room? Guards! Bring them out and beat them all up." Ruhua immediately lost her composure when she saw that her embarrassing incident had been discovered. "Miss Ruhua, you don't have to chase us away. We will leave ourselves. However, what I want to tell you is that you know what you have done. Take care," Leng Ruoxue said with a faint smile. Then, she silently left a big gift for Ruhua and turned to leave Ruhua's room. After leaving Ruhua's courtyard, Feng De hesitated a few times. In the end, he mustered his courage and asked, "Miss, are we going to let Ruhua go just like that?" "Who said I let her go?" Leng Ruoxue raised her eyebrows and asked lightly. Feng De was depressed. Miss had stayed in Ruhua's room for less than 5 minutes and only said a few words before they left. They didn't do anything at all. "I definitely won't let her go, but not now." The killing intent in Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes flashed. Even though she really wanted to deal with Ruhua, killing her directly was too easy on that woman. The gift she left behind before she left was enough for Ruhua to suffer. "Oh, then where are we going now?" Feng De nodded and asked. He knew it. How could Miss let that woman off so easily? That woman had done that sort of thing. It was too easy for her to die. Please keep reading on IB Zero's novel, .com, to watch the old man's competition, of course, Leng Ruoxue said matter-of-factly. Before coming to find Ruhua, she had asked the old man to go to the competition venue first. Even though something had happened to the cheap sake old ancestor, the competition wouldn't be cancelled because of this. "Miss, do you want me to return to the courtyard to protect the old ancestor?" Feng De asked. "No need, you don't have to worry about that side. I've already arranged it," Leng Ruoxue said calmly. They had to go to the competition venue, and they had to pretend that nothing had happened to prevent people from being suspicious. Alas, For the sake of the reputation of the cheap sake old ancestor, they definitely couldn't let anyone know about this. Oh. Fengde and the others nodded, and everyone walked towards the competition venue. However, at the entrance of the arena, they encountered a nervous old man looking around. "Lass, how's it going?" When he saw them, the disheveled old man immediately went up to them. Alas, after such a thing happened, how could he still have the mood to compete? Even though he had not known Leng Xiaoyu for long, Leng Xiaoyu was his teacher and friend, so their relationship was still very deep. "I've already arranged it. I already know the truth of the matter. Don't worry about the competition. Don't forget, the cheap ancestor and I both hope that you can win the competition," Leng Ruoxue reminded. "Yes, I'll do my best," Old Man Zhao promised very seriously. Everyone entered the arena and had just sat down when they saw Ruhua walk into the center of the arena. Immediately, several cold gazes shot at her. If looks could kill, Ruhua would have died long ago. Chapter 1019, Black-Bellied Old Man Zhao, 3. This woman is really shameless. She actually dares to participate in the competition, Cui Zhu said with disdain. "Disque, how can such a woman have the face?" Lu Tao said bluntly, her tone filled with disdain. Leng Ruoxue looked at the pale and weak Ruhua in the middle of the arena and knew that this was the aftereffect of excessive indulgence. However, because she had taken the aphrodisiac and indulged too much, the damage to her body was very great. Unfortunately, this woman only wanted to get what she wanted by unscrupulous means. She didn't think so much. Following the host's order, all the blacksmiths lit the fire together. After warming up, they prepared to officially start refining. From the third round of the competition, there were no rules regarding the level of the equipment. However, the competition still stipulated that one had to refine an attack, defense, and spatial equipment. Today's competition was about attack equipment. From the third round of the competition, it was a test of the current true level of the artifact masters. Therefore, the artifact masters would all use their special skills. Therefore, the competition was exceptionally intense. The equipment that the disheveled old man chose to refine was a hidden weapon. Hidden weapons were also considered offensive equipment. However, they were considered unpopular among offensive equipment. After all, there were not many blacksmiths who could refine hidden weapons. Moreover, the steps to refining hidden weapons were very complicated. If one was not familiar with the refinement technique, it was hard to say if they could complete the equipment within the stipulated time. However, it might be troublesome for others to refine hidden weapons, but it was very easy for Old Man Zhao. After all, he had been interested in hidden weapons since he was in the Boundless Heaven continent and had always studied them. It could be said that he was quite confident in his proficiency and success rate in refining hidden weapons. Leng Xiaoyu had also said that if he could refine a set of sacred artifact hidden weapons during the competition, his chances of winning would be at least 80%. In order to win the championship, he decided to refine hidden weapons. Please keep reading on MYB Zero's novel. Calm. After the Old Man Zhao warmed up the furnace, he calmly placed the materials he had prepared beforehand into the furnace and waited patiently. Refining weapons was actually a rather boring and complicated job, especially when it came to materials that were abnormally hard and took a long time to melt. If the artificer's patience was not enough, it was very likely that all his previous efforts would be wasted. And even if he was lucky enough to refine the equipment he wanted, the quality would probably not be satisfactory. However, Old Man Zhao had lived for so many years, and what he did not lack the least was patience. In addition, he did not have to worry about materials now, so he focused on refining weapons. Other than occasionally arguing with the old man and the others, he would stay in his refining room as long as he had nothing to do. Time passed. Soon, an hour had passed. Some of the artificers had already finished refining their equipment, but the materials in Old Man Zhao's furnace had not completely melted, which attracted the interest of many people. Many of the materials used by Old Man Zhao this time were things that they did not recognize. This also made many weapon refiners feel a little incredulous. After all, what were the artificers most familiar with? Of course, it was all kinds of ores and materials, However, now that something they didn't know had appeared, their pride couldn't help but suffer a blow. Therefore, more and more artificers who had finished refining their equipment turned their gazes to Old Man Zao. After the first 2 rounds of competition, there were only about 600 artificers participating in the 3rd round of competition. Now, more than half of the artificers' gazes were on Old Man Zao. However, Old Man Zao, who felt everyone's attention, was still calm and focused on the materials that had not completely melted in the furnace. He did not show any signs of panic. Another hour passed. The materials in Old Man Zao's furnace were still slowly melting, but he did not show any signs of anger. On the other hand, the artificers who had been staring at him broke out in cold sweat. Some of them even muttered to themselves, "Could it be that this old man wants to give up?" One had to know that there was a time limit for the artificer competition. Other than the first 2 matches, the remaining 3 matches were all set to 3 hours. Now, 2 hours had passed, but Old Man Zao's materials had not completely melted. However, Old Man Zao looked calm and collected. It was unknown if he really had that confidence or if he was pretending to show it to others. Half an hour later, the materials used by Old Man Zao finally completely melted. After being purified, Old Man Zao began to shape the equipment according to the shape he had thought of beforehand. At this moment, there were only more than 10 minutes left until the end of the entire competition. Other than Old Man Zao, all the artificers had already completed their refinement. Therefore, all the artificers, judges, and the audience turned their gazes to Old Man Zao. At this moment, everyone had different thoughts. Some were gloating, some wanted to watch a good show, and of course, some felt sorry for the old man. "Miss, what does Old Man Zao want to refine? Is there time?" Lu Tao asked curiously. "Please keep reading on OIB0's novel.com, Hidden Weapon. Don't worry." "He's confident," Lung Ruoxue said calmly and couldn't help but secretly laugh in her heart. Old Man Zao was really too bad. He could have completed it long ago, but he had to wait until the last moment. He would disappoint many people. Yes. Lu Tao nodded. She was never worried about the people around Mississippi. Those people were all two-faced. Compared to Lung Ruoxue and the others' calmness, President Lu, who was at the judging panel, broke out in cold sweat. He even wanted to cry. Boo! He didn't know what this old man was refining. It had been so long, why wasn't it done yet? After the first 2 matches, he could tell that Mo Yen and Lu Feng both thought very highly of this old man. However, if this old man couldn't complete his equipment in this match, the consequences would be unimaginable. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but steal a glance at In Rume, who was gloating. In today's competition, only Vice President In had come. Mo Yen and Sir Lu Feng actually couldn't come at the same time. Even though he was a little curious, he didn't dare to ask about it. Chapter 1020, Black-Bellied Old Man Zao, 4. As time passed, there was only a minute left until the competition ended. President Lu, prepare to announce the end of the competition. Old Man Zao didn't complete the refinement in this round. There are no results. In Rume spoke when the competition was only 30 seconds away. "Sir Rume, it's not time yet. If we announce it now, I'm afraid Old Man Zao will have objections," President Lu said with some difficulty. "Boo! What should he do?" Mo Yen and Lu Feng were not around, so In Rume was the boss. However, he saw through one thing clearly. If he really did as Vice President In said, Mo Yen and Lu Feng would not let him off. Moreover, it would definitely be worse than offending In Rume. "President Lu, there are only slightly more than 10 seconds left. Do you really think this old man can refine the equipment?" In Rume sneered. However, in an instant, her expression changed again and again. The anger in her heart gradually ignited. Damn it, at the last second before the end of the 3rd round of the competition, that Old Man Zao's equipment was actually refined. How was this possible? President Lu also heard the unique sound of the equipment being refined. He couldn't help but feel happy and completely relieved. Fortunately, it was finally refined. He couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat on his forehead and think to himself, However, when he saw the equipment that old man Zhao took out from the furnace, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. Well, what was this? The requirement was to refine offensive equipment, not spatial equipment, but old man Zhao was clearly holding a black dragon ring. Didn't old man Zhao know that today's competition was to refine offensive equipment? President Liu couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. The old man Zhao held the black dragon-shaped ring in his hand and couldn't help but feel a little smug. The quality of the equipment refined this time was better than any time. Therefore, he was very confident that he wouldn't lose first place this time. Thinking of this, he ran straight to the judges' seats and planned to hand the ring to President Liu. However, President Liu did not take the ring he handed over. His eyes were fixed on him. What's wrong? Isn't the time just right? Old man Zhao said with a hint of grievance. Actually, he had timed it perfectly. This round is about offensive equipment, President Liu reminded him quietly. Please keep reading on IB0's novel. Come, yes. I know. Old man Zhao was a little puzzled. What he refined was an offensive equipment. This is a ring. President Liu was a little angry. Was this old man deliberately trying to anger him to death? He clearly knew that he should refine offensive equipment, but he actually got a ring to fool him. That's right. This is the offensive equipment I refined, old man Zhao said with a mysterious smile. Then he whispered a few words to President Liu. Everyone saw President Liu reveal a skeptical expression. After old man Zhao finished speaking, he did not look at President Liu's expression and left coolly. In any case, the results could not be released immediately. It was a waste of time to stay any longer. Then, everyone impatiently returned to their residence and went straight to Fu Ran's room. Pushing open the door of the room, Leng Ruoxue saw Mo Yen guarding the bed of the cheap ancestor, but Lu Feng was not there. Little girl, you're back, Mo Yen said softly. Yes, how's the cheap ancestor? Leng Ruoxue came to the bed and asked Leng Xiaoyu. Miss, it's under control for the time being, but we have to think of a way as soon as possible, Zheng En said. Okay. Leng Ruoxue nodded. Qing Ju was already thinking. In a while, she would go to the alchemy room that her master had left for her. There were many of her master's past alchemy insights there. Little girl, did the competition go well? Mo Yen asked indifferently. It's smooth for us, but for some people it can be described as a series of twists and turns, Leng Ruoxue said indifferently. Oh, I have to leave later, Mo Yen said. Okay. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She knew that Mo Yen was worried about Yin Rume, afraid that the woman would tamper with the results. Miss Leng, Yin Rume is here. Suddenly, the butler's voice sounded outside the door. Why is she here at this time? Mo Yen was surprised. Shouldn't Yin Rume be waiting for the results in the conference room at this time? Won't we know if we go and take a look? Leng Ruoxue said with a faint smile. She was very curious about Yin Rume's intentions. Then she instructed Feng De and the others to stay in the room while she, the freak, and Mo Yen went to the front hall to see Yin Rume. Please keep reading on MIB0's novel. Calm after entering the front hall, Leng Ruoxue saw Yin Rume sitting on the main seat with a straight face. She couldn't help but sneer in her heart. This woman really didn't treat her as an outsider. Chapter 1021, Shameless, 1. Where is Leng Xiaoyu? Get him out here. Yin Rume immediately shouted when she saw Mo Yen and the other two. May I know why Vice President Yin wants to see my ancestor? Leng Ruoxue asked with a faint smile. How dare he treat Ruhua like this? He's really worse than a beast. Hurry up and call him out. I want to settle scores with him. Yin Rume roared angrily, her beautiful eyes filled with anger. Today, when she saw her disciple's distracted appearance, she asked with concern. She didn't expect that she would actually ask such a thing. After she found out, she immediately ran to his door to denounce him. Vice President Yin, what did my ancestor do to make you so angry? Leng Ruoxue asked calmly, her beautiful face filled with confusion. However, she seemed to be clear in her heart that these two master and disciple were really shameless. One had harmed her ancestor, and the other had come to her door to condemn her. Did this white face and red face really take them for fools? Don't play dumb with me. How can you not know what Leng Xiaoyu did? Yin Rumei said with a look of disbelief. She was even angrier. What are you saying? He's the old ancestor of our Leng family. Do you have to report everything he does to us juniors? Or do you have to inform your disciple before you do anything? Leng Ruoxue asked with a faint smile. Don't argue with me. I'm not talking to you about this. Get Leng Xiaoyu out here. Yin Rumei shouted at the top of her lungs, her face and neck red with anger. Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but find it funny when she saw Yin Rumei's angry appearance. There were really all kinds of people. They should be the ones who were angry, but this woman in front of them was actually even angrier than them. What kind of logic was this? Could it be that the debtors these days were really big bosses? Xiao Yu isn't here. It's the same if you have something to say to me, Mo Yen, who had been watching the commotion for a while, said. All right, Mo Yen, you can't protect your disciple. He has done such a thing. He has to give my disciple an explanation. Otherwise, I won't let him off, Yin Rumei threatened coldly. Please keep reading on OIB Zero's novel. What did he do? Mo Yen was also confused. He wanted to see what this master and disciple pair were up to. He bullied my disciple and stole her innocence, so he has to be responsible for my disciple. Yin Rumei shouted angrily. Do you have evidence? Leng Ruoxue chuckled. She didn't know which stinky man Ruhua was with yesterday, but this master and disciple actually blamed it on their cheap ancestor. How ridiculous! That's right. Do you have any evidence? Mo Yen sneered. If Xiao Yu had really done that kind of thing, she wouldn't be unconscious now. This Yin Rumei wanted to force someone to marry her lousy disciple, but she didn't find a good excuse. She really didn't know what was good for her. Is there even a need for evidence? Ruhua has already been. Could it be that Ruhua would spout nonsense about such a thing? Ruhua still has the evidence left behind when they were together last night. Yin Rumei said a little embarrassedly. Ruhua said that? Leng Ruoxue raised her eyebrows slightly. In fact, she had always had a question in her heart. After hearing Yin Rumei's words, she seemed to have some clues. All along, she had thought that Yin Rumei was Ruhua's accomplice. However, now that she heard Yin Rumei's words, she seemed to be unaware of this matter and only came to look for her after hearing Ruhua's words. Thinking of this, she secretly contacted Qin Ju to confirm. However, even if Yin Rumei didn't know, she was still a brainless fool. She was actually fooled by her disciple and was even used as a weapon by her disciple, so Leng Ruoxue didn't pity her at all. Yes, I also saw the evidence on Ruhua with my own eyes. Leng Xiaoyu actually poisoned her with aphrodisiac in order to get Ruhua. He's really too shameless. I really misjudged him. To think that I even wanted to marry Ruhua to him. Yin Rumei said very regretfully. After hearing Ruhua's cry, she was very angry because she really didn't expect Leng Xiaoyu to be such a person. However, after what had happened, Ruhua had no choice but to marry him. After all, in the God realm, unless a woman had a very high status and could do whatever she wanted, innocence was still very important to a woman like Ruhua. What nonsense are you talking about? How could my disciple take a fancy to Ruhua and even drug her with aphrodisiac? Could it be that you and your disciple have delusions? I can tell you now that even if your disciple stripped naked in front of Xiao Yu wouldn't want her. Mo Yen suppressed his anger and said, he hated this pair of shameless master and disciple to death in his heart. That's right. My cheap sake old ancestor can have any woman he wants. Why would he need to drug a woman? It's already good enough that your disciple didn't drug my cheap sake old ancestor, yet you still want my old ancestor to drug her. Let me tell you, such a thing won't happen in the next life. Leng Ruoxue mocked very coldly. She was really speechless at Ruhua. Even if she wanted to frame her cheap sake old ancestor, she had to think of a better reason, right? However, Yin Rumei actually believed a lie like Ruhua. Ruhua must have some tricks up her sleeve. At least her master was fooled by her. What are you talking about? Is my disciple Ruhua not worthy of Leng Xiaoyu? Inrume was so angry that her entire body was trembling as she screamed. Of course not, Inrume. I know very well what your disciple did. Now, I can tell you very clearly that it's impossible for my old ancestor to poison her. It wasn't my old ancestor who was with her last night, but someone else. As for who that person is, you'll be interested, Lung Ruoxue said mysteriously. In fact, when she went to look for Ruhua previously, she had already read Ruhua's mind. However, she could only know what Ruhua was thinking at that time. Therefore, she was not very sure if Inrume was also involved. Moreover, Qin Ju had already confirmed that Inrume's actions were not fake. However, no matter if Inrume knew or not, Inrume could not escape this debt. What do you mean? Inrume said warily. She was able to become the vice president of the Artificer Association headquarters, so she naturally couldn't be an idiot. Therefore, Lung Ruoxue's implied words instantly gave her a bad feeling. Please keep reading on YB0's novel. .com. Chapter 1022, Shameless 2. Go back and ask your good disciple. At the same time, tell her not to pour such dirty water on my ancestor, or else she will bear the consequences, Lung Ruoxue said with a faint smile. Tell her that I won't let her off for what she did to Xiaoyu. Mo Yen added. With that, Lung Ruoxue and the other two didn't even look at Inrume before turning to leave the front hall. Inrume was so angry that she almost vomited blood when she saw the three of them leave just like that. Damn it, what kind of people were these? She was clearly here to denounce them and wanted Lung Xiaoyu to be responsible for Ruhua. In the end, not only did she not achieve her goal, she even got humiliated. Thinking of this, her anger surged to the top of her head. After realizing that it was boring, she left Lung Ruoxue and the others' residence angrily. After leaving, she did not return to her room. Instead, she went straight to find Ruhua. When she arrived at Ruhua's room, she saw Ruhua lying weakly on the bed. Her heart couldn't help but ache again. After all, she had raised her disciple single-handedly. She naturally wouldn't doubt her disciple just because of a few words from others. After seeing Ruhua like this, she swallowed all the questions she wanted to ask. Master! When Ruhua saw Inrume, she struggled to get up, but Inrume pressed her onto the bed. Don't move. Lie down quickly, Inrume ordered. Master, I'm sorry. I've disappointed you, Ruhua said with tears in her beautiful eyes. She had not performed well in today's competition, so when Master reprimanded her, she could only. Please keep reading on AB0's novel. .com. Why are you saying this now? You have to rest well. There are still 2 more matches. There's still time, Inrume comforted. Even though she was a little angry that Ruhua was disappointing, now was not the time to blame Ruhua. Master, you'll perform well in the next 2 matches, Ruhua promised. Master, what did he say? Ruhua asked after a pause. Who? Inrume was stunned. Senior brother Xiaoyu, Ruhua said shyly, her beautiful face rippling with spring. After what he did to you, you're still thinking about him? Inrume asked with a stern expression. Master, you know that I like him, Ruhua said shyly. She even dreamed of Lung Xiaoyu. Then if he doesn't poison you, will you be willing to? Inrume probed, but her face was filled with curiosity. Master, I like senior brother Xiaoyu. As long as he tells me that he wants me, he'll be very happy, Ruhua said in a low voice, her head lowered. In that case, why did he still poison you? Inrume asked again. He probably doesn't know. Ruhua thought for a while and defended Lung Xiaoyu. Oh. Inrume replied indifferently and stopped talking. Master, did senior brother Xiaoyu agree or not? Ruhua asked anxiously when Inrume didn't speak for a long time. Yes, agreed, Inrume said indifferently, but she kept paying attention to Ruhua's expression from the corner of her eye. Really? Ruhua was pleasantly surprised and much more energetic. Ruhua did not doubt Inrume's words. As for why Lung Xiaoyu agreed, she did not think too much about it because she thought that her master had played a role. Yes, but Inrume glanced at Ruhua and hesitated. Please keep reading on IB0's novel. .com. But what? Ruhua hurriedly said nervously. She believed that Leng Xiaoyu would not tell the truth. After all, such things were very embarrassing for men. He doesn't admit that he was the man last night. Yin Rumei said angrily. Master, men won't admit to such things, Ruhua said a little guiltily. I don't care about other men, but if he wants to marry my disciple, he has no choice but to admit it. I've already told him clearly that even though the two of you have an intimate relationship, if he refuses to admit that he did what he did yesterday, then don't even think about marrying my disciple. Yin Rumei said proudly. Master, how can you do this? Don't you know how much I want to marry him? When Ruhua heard that her master was actually interfering, she couldn't help but fly into a rage out of humiliation. Ruhua, what kind of attitude is this? Is this how you speak to your master? Yin Rumei couldn't help but question angrily when she heard Ruhua's tone. Master, I'm sorry. I was a little anxious. Master, please forgive me. Ruhua hurriedly lowered her head and admitted her mistake. She knew that her master had always been amenable to coaxing but not coercion, so every move she used was effective. Ruhua, you really disappoint me. You actually dare to blame me for a man. You'd better tell me honestly who the man last night was. Otherwise, don't blame me for being heartless, Yin Rumei threatened. Even though she only casually asked a few questions, she could tell that Ruhua was clearly hiding something from her and even lied to her. She might have doted on this disciple very much, but Ruhua's current actions were something she could not tolerate. Master, I don't understand what you're talking about. The person last night was senior brother Xiaoyu. Ruhua said timidly. In any case, she insisted that the man last night was Leng Xiaoyu. She believed that Leng Xiaoyu wouldn't be able to clear his name without any evidence. Is it really Leng Xiaoyu? If it was Leng Xiaoyu, would he need to poison you with aphrodisiac? I'm afraid as long as he has that thought, you will automatically give yourself to him. Looking at Ruhua's current appearance, she actually felt that Leng Ruox's words made sense. Leng Xiaoyu really didn't need to do that kind of thing. He doesn't know, and he hasn't asked me. Ruhua's eyes darted around as she came up with a plan. Is that so? Yin Rumei asked doubtfully. After knowing that Ruhua had lied to her, she could no longer believe Ruhua's words like before. Master, you watched me grow up. When have I ever lied to you? Ruhua's beautiful eyes were filled with tears as she said aggrievedly. Yin Rumei didn't say anything and only looked at Ruhua quietly for a few minutes. Then, she sighed softly and turned to leave Ruhua's room. Chapter 1023, Shameless, 3, Master. Ruhua couldn't help but feel a little afraid when she saw Yin Rumei leave without saying anything. She wanted to get out of bed to chase after Yin Rumei, but her legs went limp and she fell to the ground. After Leng Ruoxue and the other two returned to Fu Ran's room, everyone immediately surrounded them. However, no one said anything and just stared at them intently. Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but be speechless at their curious looks. Did they have to be so cute? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but want to tease them. She didn't say anything and just looked at them. Miss, why is that old woman here? After looking at each other for a while, Fengde couldn't help but ask. They're here to criticize. Leng Ruoxue found these words a little ridiculous. They were quite good at blaming others. But this is wrong. Fengde was a little speechless. How did this woman have the cheek to come and accuse him? It was really unbelievable. No, she was deceived, Leng Ruoxue said lightly, then described the situation in the front hall to Fengde and the others. She trusts her disciple too much. She really believes whatever Ruhua says. Everyone couldn't help but sigh after hearing Leng Ruox's explanation. Ignore Yin Rumei for now. As for that Ruhua, dying is letting her off easy. Leng Ruoxue emitted a terrifying cold aura from head to toe and said in an incomparably cold tone, We can't let Ruhua die too easily. Everyone nodded in agreement. Please keep reading on IB0's novel. Calm, little girl, I'll leave for a while, Mo Yen said. Okay. Leng Ruoxue nodded. After Mo Yen left, Leng Ruoxue brought the freak back to her room. After the two of them entered the bracelet, they went straight to the alchemy room in the purple bamboo hut. There were many pill refinement insights and some very precious pill formulas left behind by many masters in the pill refinement room. However, Lung Ruoxue couldn't refine many pills now, so she didn't touch them. However, this time, she needed to look through all of them. The project could be said to be quite huge. Freak, let's split the work. Lung Ruoxue looked at the freak and said, "Yes." The freak nodded, then started searching the east bookshelf. "Elder sister, you'll help too." Qingju's voice suddenly appeared in Lung Ruoxue and the freak's ears. Immediately after, a small figure appeared in front of them. "Qingju, then find the middle part." Lung Ruoxue thought for a moment and said, "All right." Qingju nodded and ran to the middle to start searching. The three of them searched for nearly an afternoon. At night, they didn't find any records of aphrodisiac in those insights. However, Lung Ruoxue felt relieved when she thought about it. After all, how could someone like her master, who had the aura of a king, be interested in aphrodisiac? "Sister, well, think of a way. Don't worry." Qingju quickly comforted her when he felt Lung Ruoxue's low mood. "Yes." Lung Ruoxue nodded. "Sister, I heard from Little Fire that aphrodisiac poison has fire-type attributes. We might be able to temporarily suppress it with ice and water attribute herbs," Qingju said after thinking for a while. Even though he didn't know if Little Fire's idea would work, he could only try it first. "Medicinal herbs? Do you need to refine them into medicinal pills?" Lung Ruoxue quickly asked. Previously, she had asked Jing En to give some medicinal pills to her cheap sake old ancestor, but she had never thought of using medicinal herbs directly. "No, but they have to be at least 1,000 years old. Moreover, the older it is, the better the effect," Qingju explained. "Oh, Qingju, give me 1,000-year-old snow lotus to try." Lung Ruoxue thought for a moment and said, "All right," Qingju replied. Then he disappeared into the void. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. A moment later, when Qingju appeared again, a jade box appeared in his hand and he handed it to Lung Ruoxue. Lung Ruoxue took the jade box and left the bracelet with the freak. After arriving at Fu Ran's room, Lung Ruoxue handed the jade box to Jing En and instructed him to get the cheap sake old ancestor to consume the snow lotus inside. Then her beautiful eyes searched around, but she didn't find any traces of Mo Yen and Old Man Zhao. "Grandpa, where did Old Man Zhao go?" Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but ask curiously. "He was called away by someone sent from Mo Yen," Lung Qingtian explained. "Oh." Lung Ruoxue nodded. At this moment, Old Man Zhao was eloquently explaining the principle of his hidden weapon to the higher-ups of the Artificer Association in the meeting room. However, after he tried his best to explain the dragon-shaped ring, he realized that the judges were looking at him as if he was a monster. This made him feel a little upset. Damn it, what did these people mean? They were the ones who asked him to speak. After he spoke, they looked at him like this. It was really infuriating. Thinking of this, he complained about Mo Yen in his heart. It was all Mo Yan's fault for sending someone to invite him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come. "Old Man Zhao, how did you think of refining such a hidden weapon?" President Liu asked on behalf of the judges. When he heard Old Man Zhao say that this ring was a hidden weapon, he was a little skeptical. However, after he tested it himself, he couldn't help but sigh at Old Man Zhao's ingenuity. By refining a hidden weapon into the shape of a ring, everyone would only treat it as a storage ring. Who would have thought that it was actually a trump card? This was really impossible to guard against. Brilliant. Truly brilliant. Thinking of this, President Liu couldn't help but beam with joy. Even though their blacksmiths were proficient in refining weapons, many of them didn't have very high cultivation levels. If everyone could have such a hidden weapon, it would really be like adding wings to a tiger. The strength of their artificers would also greatly increase. However, he didn't know if this old man was willing to hand over the refinement method. After all, this was something that he had thought of himself, so he couldn't force it. "I didn't think much of it. I just did it casually," Old Man Zhao said with a smirk. He wasn't stupid. There was no way he was going to be honest with a stranger. President Liu was speechless. This was the same as not saying anything. However, this was not the first time he had seen this old man so cunning. He slowly got used to it, seeing it so often. Chapter 1024, Shameless 4. Old Man Zhao, how did you refine this hidden weapon? Even though President Liu was too embarrassed to ask, someone did ask shamelessly. I'm sorry, I can't tell you. Old Man Zhao said coldly. He was already giving Mo Yen face by being willing to tell them the principle of this ring. Now, he actually asked him about the refinement method. How ridiculous! That was his way of earning money in the future. How could he tell them? Old Man Zhao, you're also an artificer. Shouldn't you contribute to the Artificer Association? If our overall strength as an artificer increases, wouldn't it be beneficial to you too? That person continued. Of course he'll be happy if it can increase the overall strength of the artificer. However, what does this have to do with me? Moreover, you want me to contribute to the Artificer Association. Then I want to ask, what right do you have to request this from me? I'm not a member of your Artificer Association. Also, what's in it for me? Old Man Zhao said with a mocking expression. Alas, these people were really too hypocritical. They were clearly thinking of using his hidden weapons, but they actually said it so righteously. He was not a savior, so how could he interfere in so many matters? How can you not be from the Artificer Association as a certified artificer? The man was so angry that he pounded his chest and stomped his feet, panting heavily. Are certified artificers considered members of the Artificer Association? There are so many artificers in the Divine Continent and even the entire God realm. Can your Artificer Association afford to raise them? Old Man Zhao asked with a smile and a face full of curiosity. Did this person think he was a fool? After all, he had been a leader for a while. How could he not know the tricks in the guild? Moreover, being certified and becoming a member of the Artificer Association were two completely different things. The Artificer Association would usually invite some artificers to join the guild. However, the requirements for artificers who joined the guild were extremely high. Most ordinary artificers had to rely on themselves, and the guild did not care at all. Moreover, the fees for the certification of the artificers were not low, so this person's words were really not convincing. The man was so angry that he was speechless. His eyes searched around before finally landing on Mo Yen, who had been silent. Your Excellency Mo Yen, say something. That person said anxiously. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0M, what do you want me to say? Mo Yen asked with a faint smile. This fellow had said everything that he should and shouldn't say, yet he still expected him to say something? He had originally meant well by inviting Old Man Zhao to explain the hidden weapon to them at the request of the judges. He did not expect that some people would actually have thoughts that they should not have. If this were to spread, what would their Artificer Association become? Bandits who specialized in robbing artifact masters? They were not that despicable. Moreover, after what they had done, who knew what that protective little girl would think of him? Thinking of this, his anger burned even more. We artificers really need such a hidden weapon, the man quickly said. Oh, then you can refine it yourself. You're all artificers, so it shouldn't be difficult to refine a hidden weapon. Mo Yen said with a wicked smile. But not every artificer knows how to refine hidden weapons, the man said. In fact, he wanted to say that not all artificers could refine such good hidden weapons, but then he felt that it was inappropriate, so he changed his words. It's okay. You can refine it yourself if you know how to refine it. If you don't, you can spend money to hire Old Man Zhao to help refine it. I believe that as long as the price is right, he won't refuse, Mo Yen suggested. As long as the price is satisfactory, hidden weapons are not a problem. Old Man Zhao hurriedly nodded in agreement. For a moment, no one dared to speak. Old man, there's nothing for you to do here. You can go back first. There's still a competition tomorrow. Remember to rest early tonight, Mo Yen said lightly to Old Man Zhao. All right, I'll take my leave, Old Man Zhao said politely. Then he turned and left the conference room. Your Excellency Mo Yen, why didn't you order him to hand over the refinement method? As long as you ask, he won't dare to refuse. After Old Man Zhao left, that person actually had the courage to question Mo Yen. The Artificer Association is not a bandit den. By the way, let me tell you that from today onwards, you will be removed from the Artificer Association, effectively immediately, Mo Yen said casually. Your Excellency Mo Yen, you can't do this. I'm Vice President Yin's subordinate. When that person heard Mo Yan's words, he immediately panicked and shouted in the meeting room. Even if you're the president's man, I'm still going to remove you today, lest you embarrass the Artificer Association. And you guys, put away all the thoughts you shouldn't have and focus on the right place. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless, Mo Yen warned coldly. After saying that, he stood up and left the meeting room. Chapter 1025, Black Star Grass, 1. Your Excellency Mo Yen, you can't do this. When that person saw this, he hurriedly chased out of the meeting room and shouted behind Mo Yen. However, he was ignored by Mo Yen. Mo Yen and Old Man Zhao returned to Lung Ruoxue and the others' residence. As soon as he walked into Fu Ran's room, Mo Yen said apologetically, I'm sorry. Little girl, I didn't expect them to have designs on hidden weapons. It's okay, you can't be blamed for this, Lung Ruoxue said very understandingly. As soon as Old Man Zhao returned, he described what had happened in the Artificer Association's meeting room to them. Everyone was very angry about this, but they were still very satisfied with Mo Yan's performance. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Mo Yen actually heaved a sigh of relief. Even though this made him feel quite incredulous, he didn't think too much about it. Then he walked to Lung Xiaoyu's bed and sat down. There's still a competition tomorrow. All of you should rest early. Leave this to me. Mo Yen looked at Lung Xiaoyu, who was still unconscious on the bed, and said to the others, All right then. Lung Ruoxue didn't reject Mo Yan's good intentions and left with Feng De and the others. However, she still arranged for the Night Clan to guard in the dark to prevent any accidents. The next day, Lung Ruoxue and the others came to Fu Ran's room early to visit Lung Xiaoyu. Girl, don't worry and go to the arena. I'm here. Mo Yen smiled lightly when he saw Lung Ruoxue and the others. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0M, you should rest too. I'll let Jing in guard here, Lung Ruoxue said with concern. Even though Mo Yen looked good, it was difficult to hide his fatigue. After all, even gods needed to rest. That's good too. Mo Yen nodded. Then he reminded Old Man Zhao, Old Man Zhao, even though you got first place in the first 3 rounds, the competition for the next 2 rounds will probably be even more intense. Therefore, you must not let your guard down, especially Lu Xing, who is in second place. His score is not much less than yours. Don't worry, I won't underestimate my opponent, Old Man Zhao promised with a smile. He wanted to win the championship, so he wouldn't let go of any competition. Yes. Mo Yen nodded in satisfaction. It didn't matter if he was selfish or protective. After all, this old man was on his disciple's side. Therefore, he naturally hoped that this inconspicuous old man could win the championship of this competition. With that, Mo Yen left Fu Ran's room. Lung Ruoxue and the others accompanied Lung Xiaoyu in the room for a while before going to the arena. When they arrived at the arena, Old Man Zhao went straight to the center of the arena to prepare, while Lung Ruoxue and the others came to their seats. Not long after, Lung Ruoxue and the others saw Ruhua walk into the arena a little haggard. Before the competition officially began, Lung Ruoxue observed Yin Rumei, who was sitting at the judge's table, and found that even though Yin Rumei's expression was normal, she had a straight face. Even when she saw her disciple, she didn't have a good expression. When Ruhua saw Yin Rumei, she seemed to want to say something, but Yin Rumei deliberately turned her head away, not giving her any chance to speak, causing Ruhua to be unable to speak. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh in her heart when she saw this situation. It seemed that this mother-daughter pair had internal strife. Very good, this was the result she wanted, but this wasn't enough. Miss, Ruhua doesn't look too good, /Fortao whispered. Yes, that's all the aftereffects of the aphrodisiac. Lung Ruox's eyes were cold as she gloated. The aphrodisiac was a strong medicine and was very harmful to the body, especially under excessive indulgence. Ruo belonged to the category of excessive indulgence. Then will the old ancestor Yuan/Fortao was a little worried. With me around, I won't let anything happen to him, Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. At this moment, as the host finished speaking, the fourth round of the artificer competition officially began. In the fourth round of the competition, the equipment required to be refined was a defensive type. No matter what shape it was, it had to be mainly defensive. The criteria for judging would be in addition to the level of the equipment, the defensive ability of the equipment, the proficiency of the refinement technique, and the aesthetics. After the third round of the competition ended, there were only 400 artificers who were still qualified to continue participating in the competition. Almost all of these 400 blacksmiths were at the revered artificer refinement master. In other words, they could all refine sacred artifacts. Therefore, it was extremely difficult to judge. At the same time, this also showed that the artificers had to be more meticulous and serious when refining equipment. Please keep reading on YB0XN0VL. C0M. After the artificers in the arena warmed up the furnace, they threw the materials that they had prepared into the furnace and started refining in an orderly manner. However, both the judges and the audience were attracted by the old man Zao. This was because the other artificers had already started refining. However, the old man Zao was doing this and that calmly without any intention of refining. This couldn't help but make the judges and the audience anxious. The audience. What's wrong with this old man? He almost didn't finish refining in the previous round, and now he's doing this again? Someone whispered. After the competition began, they were not allowed to make a loud noise. Otherwise, if they affected the artificers' competition, they would be the unlucky ones. I don't know. Just keep watching. Anyway, there's a time limit for the competition, someone said. At the judges' table, there were also people who were worried. President Liu, what is this old man trying to do? A judge stole a glance at Yin. Seeing that she didn't notice him, he dared to ask softly. I don't know. We're not the ones competing. Why are you in a hurry? President Liu rolled his eyes at that person. Actually, he was also anxious in his heart. However, it was useless for them to be anxious. They couldn't possibly help the lousy old man refine weapons. President Liu, if this old man loses the competition, will Your Excellency Mo Yen settle the score with us? This was what that person was most worried about. In fact, after the first 3 matches, even if they were blind, they could see something. Shut your mouth. How dare you discuss about His Excellency Mo Yen? Do you want to die? President Liu reprimanded softly. His Excellency Mo Yen was the only weapon god in the god realm. He was not someone who could be casually discussed. Chapter 1026, Black Stargrass 2. In the god realm, a revered artificer refinement master could only be considered a child among blacksmiths. Above a revered artificer refinement master were a grandmaster refiner, a king refiner, and a weapon god. Becoming a weapon god was definitely the highest achievement for a blacksmith. Currently, there were only 2 people in the god realm who were weapon gods. There was definitely a huge threshold from a revered artificer refinement master. If he could praise it, his future would definitely be limitless. Otherwise, he would probably only be a revered master weapon refinement master for the rest of his life. The most important condition for becoming a weapon refinement sacred master was that one could refine divine artifacts. Even if the divine artifact one refined was only an elementary divine artifact, one could still receive the courtesy of any faction. This was also the dream of most blacksmiths. As for the weapon god, blacksmiths could only look up to him. Hearing President Liu's reprimand, the man tactfully shut up, but his gaze was still fixed on the disheveled old man. At this moment, old man Zao in the arena had already poured out all the materials in one of his rings. When the judges and audience saw old man Zao's actions, their jaws dropped. However, what surprised them even more was the materials that the old man Zao had placed on the ground. Each of those materials was enough to make any artificer go crazy. Because it was a competition between artifact masters, 80% of the audience were artifact masters. When they saw the materials that the disheveled old man had, their eyes lit up. They wished they could take those precious materials for themselves. However, they could only think about it. They did not have the guts to really snatch the materials from old man Zao. A considerable number of artificers who were refining weapons became jealous of the disheveled old man after seeing his actions and the materials on the ground. Which big family did this old man come from? How could he have so many supreme-grade materials? It was really infuriating to compare. Some of the artificers' mental endurance was too poor. When they saw the precious materials that old man Zao casually threw on the ground, their minds were unstable and they almost damaged the equipment that they were refining. When old man Zao saw this, he even reminded them with a smile. Focus. Don't be affected by anything. Otherwise, your equipment will be useless. After saying that, he angrily fiddled with the materials in front of them. Then he sorted the materials into categories and finally kept them in his ring. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0M. As for the materials that the disheveled old man was preparing to refine defensive equipment, he had taken them out from another storage ring. Naturally, the quality was not as good as the ones he had revealed earlier. Then, old man Zao slowly refined the equipment. Lung Ruoxue, who was also sitting in the audience, was really angry and amused when she saw old man Zao's actions. Old man Zao was clearly doing it on purpose. However, wasn't he afraid of attracting the covetous eyes of others? She couldn't help but be a little speechless. Alas. Now, the blacksmiths on the field probably weren't thinking about refining weapons. As time passed, old man Zaos on the field completed their refinement one after another. However, the disheveled old man was still adding materials to the furnace. His actions made many people's foreheads drip with cold sweat. What did this mean? There was no need to use so many materials to refine a defensive equipment. After observing for a while, they saw that the disheveled old man had placed at least dozens of materials in the furnace. In addition to what the disheveled old man had placed in the furnace previously, there were probably at least 100 kinds of materials, right? Therefore, for a moment, no one could figure out what this disheveled old man was trying to do. Actually, old man Zao had done this to confuse them. Therefore, he had placed a pile of materials that were basically useless and would not affect the quality of the equipment. The result of this was that everyone was confused by him. However, this was what he wanted. He had secretly learned his refinement technique from the girl. How could he let others learn it? The materials that old man Zao threw into the furnace this time were abnormally stubborn and wouldn't melt easily. Therefore, the wait was long and anxious. However, the ones who felt this way were others. Old man Zao himself didn't feel that way. Instead, he closed his eyes and dozed off. Miss, old man Zao is playing tricks again, Cui Zhu said helplessly to Lung Ruoxue in the audience. This is called a tactic. It's used to confuse the opponent. Lung Ruoxue chuckled. Oh. Cui Zhu nodded. She couldn't help but think to herself. The people around the young lady were all cunning. It was really too easy to plot against others. Just as Lung Ruoxue said, old man Zao opened his eyes at the right time. At the same time, the materials in the furnace happened to melt. Immediately after, he began to purify, shape, and temper. The entire set of movements was as smooth as flowing water, causing everyone's eyes to be dazzled. When there was still a minute before the entire competition, old man Zao finally completed the refinement of his equipment. When the judges saw this, even though they were furious, they all heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, it was completed again without any danger. However, if old man Zao was like this every time, they would not be able to stand it. When old man Zao walked to the judges' table and handed his equipment to President Lu grabbed him. I saw your old man Zao. Can you refine the equipment earlier next time? Look, the others have completed Euro, President Lu said with a smile. However, he only said half of the sentence. Alas, he couldn't say that this old man gave them a lot of pressure. If this old man knew that they were on tenterhooks because of him, he would definitely say, "You asked for it." Please keep reading on YB0XN0VL. C0MY. I completed it in the prescribed time. It's not like I exceeded the time limit. Besides, the materials I used are not easy to refine. There's no way to complete it in advance. Old man Zhao said with a troubled expression. President Liu was depressed. He thought to himself, if you didn't know how to do this and that previously, would time be so tight? What I mean is that you can refine it when the competition begins. President Liu said very implicitly, implying that he should not mess with anything else. I am. Old man Zhao pretended to be stupid and said, President Liu, take your time to rate. I'm leaving. Chapter 1027, Black Stargrass. 3. With that, Old Man Zhao left the arena without looking back to meet up with Leng Ruoxue and the others. After everyone returned to their residence, they went straight to Fu Ran's room. After entering the room, Leng Ruoxue found an extremely handsome stranger in the room, and Lu Feng, who had disappeared for more than a day, appeared. Little fox, you're back. Where's the old man? Lu Feng asked impatiently when he saw Leng Ruoxue. Sir Lu Feng, I'm here, the disheveled old man replied directly when he heard Lu Feng asking him. Go. Follow me. Lu Feng's eyes lit up as he dragged old man Zhao out of the room. Leng Ruoxue didn't stop him when she saw this. After all, with Lu Feng's status, he wouldn't sell the disheveled old man. Girl, he's Lu Yu, the vice president of the Alchemist Association and Lu Feng's elder brother. Mo Yen introduced him to Leng Ruoxue. Lu Yu, he's the little girl I told you about, Mo Yen said again. I've heard a lot about you, little fox. Lu Yu chuckled. Leng Ruoxue was a little depressed when she heard this form of address. She even complained about Lu Feng in her heart. It was fine if she called that damned Lu Feng a little fox, but now he actually called her brother. However, Leng Ruoxue didn't expect that one of the brothers, Lu Feng and Lu Yu, was actually specialized in refining weapons and the other was good at refining pills. Moreover, they were both in high positions. This was really unbelievable. Please keep reading on YB0XN0VL. C0M. The Lu Yu in front of him had the appearance of an immortal. There was a faint and distant smile on his incomparably handsome face. However, his bright starry eyes flickered with a trace of interest. It was obvious that he was very interested in someone. Needless to say, this person was Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue looked at Lu Yu in confusion. She was very sure that the two of them had never seen each other before, so she really couldn't figure out why this man was looking at her as if he was looking at prey. Stop looking, the freak will be jealous. Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but grumble in her heart. Have you seen enough? As Leng Ruoxue expected, the freak immediately said unhappily when he saw the handsome man staring at his schwer. Is this little fellow jealous? Lu Yu knew very well that he had heard Lu Feng mention these little fellows before, so he was very interested in them. Therefore, he couldn't help but take a few more glances. Who knew that he would actually make this little fellow unhappy? How interesting. Little one. When the freak heard these three words, his face immediately darkened. This person actually called him a little fellow. He didn't know who the little fellow was. If it wasn't for the fact that this man only looked at Schwer with curiosity and interest, he would have beaten him up until even his parents wouldn't recognize him. I'm not jealous, and I'm certainly not a little guy, the freak said through gritted teeth. In my eyes, you're all little fellows, Lu Yu said with a faint smile. Are you here to treat your cheap sake old ancestor? Leng Ruoxue changed the topic. Otherwise, she was really afraid that the freak would fight with this guy. Little Fox is very smart. I've already seen Leng Xiaoyu's situation. He's controlled it very well and the poison hasn't continued to spread. However, we have to refine the antidote as soon as possible. Otherwise, he can only remain unconscious, Lu Yu said seriously. You have a way? Leng Ruoxue quickly asked. She didn't know much about the aphrodisiac, and her master didn't leave too many records about it, so she knew that she could only place her hopes on the alchemists of the god realm, and Lu Ye's status among alchemists was definitely not low. Otherwise, Mo Yen and Lu Feng wouldn't have invited him. There is a way, but I don't have the herbs, Lu Yu said with some difficulty. Even a clever housewife couldn't cook without rice. Even if he could cure the aphrodisiac in Leng Xiaoyu's body, it was useless without the herbs. What herbs do you need? Leng Ruoshu asked. She had a lot of herbs in her hands, but she didn't know what Lu Yu wanted to use. Because his aphrodisiac poison is already deep, not only do we have to double the medicinal herbs needed to refine the antidote, we even have to add a very precious medicinal herb. That kind of medicinal herb can't be bought with money, and it has long disappeared from the god realm. Lu Yu sighed softly and said helplessly. What's the name of that medicinal herb? Leng Ruoxu's heart couldn't help but sink when she heard Lu Ye's words, but she still asked very calmly. Please keep reading on YB0XN0VL. C0M black stargrass is a black grass with star-shaped leaves. That grass is extremely poisonous, but it's exceptionally precious. It's difficult to find even with money, Lu Yu said. After adding the black stargrass, any strange poison, no matter how serious the injury, can be healed, Lu Yu explained. Oh. Leng Ruoxue responded, then secretly contacted Qing Ju and asked about the black stargrass. However, the knowledgeable Qing Ju had never heard of this grass. It was mainly because Qing Ju was not interested in poisonous grass, so he did not pay much attention to it. Where does the black stargrass usually grow? Leng Ruoxue couldn't get the answer she wanted from Qing Ju, so she could only continue to ask Lu Yu. The black stargrass is a poisonous herb, so it naturally likes dark and damp places. However, the place where the black stargrass lives must be filled with poisonous gas. It's very difficult to find the black stargrass. Moreover, the black stargrass has been extinct in the god realm for many years, Lu Yu said honestly. Is there a suitable place for the black stargrass to grow in the divine continent? Leng Ruoxue asked again. She had not been in the divine continent for long, so she was not very familiar with this place. She had to check the map in many places, so she might as well ask the person in front of her directly. There are two. One is the Dark Grand Canyon, and the other is in the Abyssal Swamp. Both places are very dangerous. Even I don't dare to step into them easily, Lu Yu said helplessly. In the entire god realm, these two places were the most suitable places for the growth of the black stargrass. And these two places happened to be on the god's continent. Therefore, in the past, these two places would be filled with adventurers. However, since a poisonous fog riot in the Dark Grand Canyon hundreds of years ago, many people had gone there to explore. Oh! Leng Ruoxue nodded, indicating that she understood. However, even if she wanted to go there to find the black stargrass, she had to wait until the old man's competition tomorrow ended. After all, she didn't want anything to happen to the old man again. Chapter 1028, Black Stargrass 4. Girl, no one can go there, Mo Yen, who could tell what Leng Ruoxue was thinking, said lightly. Yes, it's so dangerous there. How would we dare to go? Leng Ruoxue quickly said obediently. However, she had already made up her mind. She would set off immediately the day after Old Man Zao's competition ended. Thus, it's very dangerous there. Mo Yen nodded. You guys haven't eaten yet, right? Go eat something. Mo Yen said after some thought. Okay, then we'll go eat something first. Leng Ruoxue was very cooperative and then left the room with everyone. You plan to go alone? Lu Yu asked after Leng Ruoxue and the others left. Yes, I'm a divine emperor after all. It shouldn't be a problem for me to protect myself, Mo Yen said confidently. However, he couldn't leave immediately. After all, tomorrow was the last match of the blacksmith competition, so he had to stay behind to oversee it. Even if you're a divine emperor, you can't be careless. That place, just having strength isn't enough, Lu Yu reminded. He had been to both places in the past, so he naturally knew the dangers there. Just strength alone couldn't guarantee that he could escape unscathed. Don't I still have you? Can you watch me take the risk? Mo Yen chuckled. Looks like you've long had designs on me. Lu Yu shook his head and looked at his good friend helplessly. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0 Hehe. That's a must. However, you just have to prepare enough pills for me, Mo Yen said. Don't you need me to go with you? I'm quite familiar with that place. Lu Yu looked at Mo Yen and asked in confusion. There's no need. You have more important things to do, Mo Yen said. He was worried about leaving Lu Feng alone here. That guy might look smart, but in fact, only people who really knew Lu Feng would know how muddle-headed he was. If the cunning and scheming Lu Yu stayed here, he wouldn't have to worry about Xiao Ye's condition and could focus more on finding the black stargrass. Yes, don't worry. I'll take good care of your precious disciple. However, I have to remind you that the black stargrass has long disappeared from the god realm, so, Lu Yu stopped mid-sentence. He didn't know how to comfort his old friend. In fact, he didn't want Mo Yen to have too much hope, lest he was even more disappointed. However, he couldn't say it in the end. I know what you want to say. I'll do my best. Mo Yen patted Lu Ye's shoulder. Do what? Do you need my help? At this moment, Lu Feng happened to hear the latter half of the sentence and walked in. He couldn't help but ask curiously. After the last match ends tomorrow, I plan to go to the Dark Grand Canyon and the Abyssal Swamp. I'll leave this place to you. Take care of Xiao Yu for me and watch over those little fellows, Mo Yen said calmly to Lu Feng. What? Don't you know how dangerous those two places are? Lu Feng widened his eyes and couldn't help but growl. Even though there were only the three of them in the room and an unconscious Leng Xiaoyu, he still didn't dare to speak too loudly lest the walls had ears. That's where the black stargrass grows, and the black stargrass can save my disciple, so as a master, I have to go, Mo Yen said firmly. Last time, Xiao Yu was placed under house arrest by Yuan Biao and he couldn't help at all. This time, no matter what, he wouldn't miss the opportunity to save his disciple. Then I'll go with you, Lu Feng said without thinking. No, I'll go alone. You two brothers stay here and help me take care of Xiao Yu. I don't trust Yin Rume and I'm afraid she'll tamper with it. Mo Yen was very honest, and the unlucky Yin Rume was used by him. All right then. You have to be careful. Brother, you have to prepare more pills for Mo Yen. I don't want to never be able to him again. Lu Feng reminded again. Well, I won't let him have the chance to die there unless he kills himself, Lu Yu promised. Lu Feng, I'm afraid that the little girl will also go to those two places, so you have to keep an eye on them, Mo Yen said again. Yes, I will be more vigilant, Lu Feng promised very seriously. At the same time, Leng Ruoxue and the others gathered in the bracelet to discuss heading to the Dark Grand Canyon and the Abyssal Swamp. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0. Chapter 1029, The Dark Grand Canyon, 1. In the bracelet. After Feng De and the others heard Leng Ruoxue's words, they all expressed that they wanted to go with her. However, they were rejected by Leng Ruoxue because she knew that Mo Yen probably wouldn't let her leave easily. Once she brought Feng De and the others to the Dark Grand Canyon and the Abyssal Swamp, she would probably be discovered before she walked out of Flame City. Feng De, all of you stay here to protect the ancestor. Me, the freak, brother, and grandfather can go together, Leng Ruoxue said after some thought. At the same time, she decided to leave a portion of the Night Clan behind. With them protecting everyone here, she would be much more at ease even if she left temporarily. Little Shuer, I want to go too, Leng Qianye immediately protested when he saw that he wasn't among the people Leng Ruoxue was talking about. You can't go. You have to stay here and cover for us, Leng Ruoxue said. If the Leng family disappeared, Lu Feng and the others would probably sense something. She didn't want to be discovered by Mo Yen before leaving Flame City. All right then. However, you have to be careful, Leng Qianye reminded. He knew very well how dangerous those two places were, so he really didn't want anything to happen to little Shuer and the others in order to save Grandpa. That way, even if Grandpa woke up, he wouldn't be happy. Okay. Leng Ruoxue nodded. She had so many beasts and the Night Clan. It was really not easy for someone to hurt her on the Divine Continent. And you, arrange for some people to stay here to protect them. The others will follow me to the Dark Grand Canyon and the Abyssal Swamp. Lung Ruoxue said to Enyu. Even though not all the night clansmen had come out of seclusion, the people who had come out were enough. Miss, don't worry, I've already arranged it, Enyu said. Ever since he knew Lung Ruoxue's thoughts, he had made preparations in advance without Lung Ruoxue's arrangements because he knew that Miss wouldn't easily change her mind. Well, set off tomorrow night, Lung Ruoxue said lightly. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0M okay. Enyu nodded. Stay in Flame City obediently. If In Rume wants to find your sisters-in-law, hold it in until I return. When I find the black star grass to save my Cheapsake old ancestor, we'll settle our new and old scores together, Lung Ruoxue reminded. Miss, don't worry. We will guard the old ancestor without leaving the house. We won't let anyone have the chance to take advantage of us, Feng De hurriedly promised. Although he really wanted to accompany Miss to find the black star grass, he knew Lung Ruoxue's temper very well. Once Miss had decided on something, she wouldn't change her mind easily. Therefore, he could only accept this fact. After all, they had an important mission in Flame City. Yes, all right, the matter has been discussed. I'll send you out first, Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. Then she sent Feng De and the others out of the bracelet, in case it would be suspicious if she didn't see them for a long time. After sending Feng De and the others out, Lung Ruoxue turned her gaze to Enyu and asked, Enyu, you should know these two places, right? Yes, I know. I've been to both places before. It's indeed dangerous inside, but with us around, there's no need to worry, Miss, Enyu promised. He had almost recovered to his peak, so protecting Miss and the others in those two places was not a problem. Moreover, Miss still had such a magical space, so he was even more confident. Then tell me about those two places, Lung Ruoxue said curiously. Miss, the dark spiritual energy in the Dark Grand Canyon is very dense. It can be said that that place is very suitable for the Night Clan to cultivate. Therefore, our Night Clan used to treat that place as a training ground. However, something happened to the Night Clan later on, and we were all imprisoned and exiled. Therefore, I can't say for sure what it has become now, but there are many natural treasures there, and you paused and didn't continue. Are they all poisonous? Lung Ruoxue asked. Since the black star grass was poisonous and that place was suitable for growing black star grass, those who could survive there must be poisonous. Not necessarily. Even if it's not poisonous, it's not something ordinary cultivators can consume. However, many alchemists like it very much. However, alchemists are weak and don't dare to take risks easily. Therefore, there are many adventurers in those two places. They specially search for valuable herbs in the Dark Grand Canyon and the Abyssal Swamp. Then, they sell them to alchemists at a high price to earn high profits, Enyu explained. Oh. Lung Ruoxue nodded in understanding. But miss, this is all in the past. I'm not sure what it's like there now, Enyu added. It's okay, we'll know tomorrow. By the way, which one should we go to first? Lung Ruoxue asked. Let's go to the Dark Grand Canyon first. The Abyssal Swamp is a little far from Flame City, Enyu said after thinking for a while. Lung Ruoxue nodded in agreement. It was already nighttime after Tong Yu finished understanding the situation in the Dark Canyon and Abyss Swamp. Lung Ruoxue and the freak hurriedly left the bracelet and went to Fu Ran's room. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0M. Ever since Cheapsake old ancestor's accident, he had been staying in Fu Ran's room. However, in order not to arouse suspicion, Fu Ran did not stay in another room. However, when Lung Ruoxue and the freak passed by the garden, they found old man Zhao talking to an unfamiliar young man. Actually, it couldn't be considered unfamiliar. After all, Lung Ruoxue still knew that man, because that person was none other than the runner-up in the artificer competition behind old man Zhao, Lu Sheng. Lung Ruoxue and the freak looked at each other and walked into the garden. Old man, you have a guest? Lung Ruoxue knew what the consultant was saying and saw the discomfort on the old man's face. That's right. Girl, this is Lu Sheng, the representative of the Ascender Alliance. Old man Zhao winked and introduced, the displeasure in his eyes flashing. Oh, I've heard a lot about you. May I know why young Master Lu is here? Lung Ruoxue pretended to be curious. Chapter 1030, The Dark Grand Canyon, 2. Young Master Lu wants to buy a supreme-grade void stone from me. Old Man Zhao rolled his eyes and said speechlessly. They were actually competing with each other, understood? Buying something from their opponent and wanting to use it to defeat their opponent. If he really sold the supreme-grade void stone to Lu Xing, wouldn't he be a fool? Or did he really look that stupid? Oh, I see. However, young Master Lu, it's not good for the contestants to interact in private during the competition. Those who don't know might think that you want to operate in secret. Lung Ruoxue kindly reminded and secretly observed Lu Xing. Even though this Lu Xing wasn't particularly handsome, he could be considered a handsome man. It was just that the scheming in this handsome man's eyes was too deep, making her very unhappy. Moreover, this person was Old Man Zhao's greatest competitor. Moreover, because of him, her ancestor was imprisoned by Yuan Biao. Therefore, Lung Ruoxue felt that she had no reason to have a good impression of this Lu Xing. Miss, you're being too kind. I just want to buy a supreme-grade void stone. I don't have any other intentions, Lu Xing said very politely. The surprise in his eyes flashed quickly. Old Man Zhao, do you still have any extra supreme-grade void stones? If you do, sell one to young Master Lu. Lung Ruoxue asked with a light smile. Girl, I only have a total of 2 supreme-grade void stones in my hand. I used one of them that day, and the other is for tomorrow. I really don't have any extra, Old Man Zhao said in a very difficult manner. Oh, young Master Lu, the old man doesn't have any supreme-grade void stone left. I'm really sorry to have made you come for nothing, Lung Ruoxue said lightly with a smile in her eyes. It's okay. Lu Xing suppressed his displeasure and pretended to be magnanimous. In fact, he did not believe that this old man did not have any supreme-grade void stone in his hands. In his opinion, this old man was clearly afraid that he would surpass him tomorrow, so he was unwilling to sell him the supreme-grade void stone. Thinking of this, he could not help but hate the old man. Young Master Lu, it's getting late. There's still a competition tomorrow. You guys should rest early. Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. Miss, you're right. I'll take my leave, Lu Xing said reluctantly. Since she had already ordered him to leave, there was no point in him staying any longer. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0M with that, Lu Xing left under the gazes of Lung Ruoxue and the other two. Girl, luckily you came at the right time. Otherwise, I really wouldn't know what to do. Old Man Zhao heaved a sigh of relief and smiled. What's there to not know? Just tell him that there's none. He won't dare to snatch it openly here. Lung Ruoxue said disapprovingly. Old Man Zhao wiped the cold sweat off his forehead and said speechlessly, if he really wants to snatch it from me, I won't be afraid. You know that I'm most afraid of others wasting my time with me. If he continues to pester me for a while, I might sell it to him if I get impatient. You still have to exercise. However, it's indeed late now. There's still a competition tomorrow. Rest early. Lung Ruoxue reminded. Yes, girl. I'll go back to my room now. Aren't you going to sleep? Old Man Zhao asked. I'll go see Cheap Sake old ancestor, Lung Ruoxue said. With that, she went to Fu Ran's room with the freak. After seeing the cheap ancestor, they returned to the bracelet together. The next day, Lung Ruoxue and the others went straight to the arena after seeing Lung Xiaoyu. As today was the last match, the artificers and representatives of the various families who came to watch the battle could be said to have set a record. The entire arena was filled with people and was already filled with people. Miss, there are so many people today. Lu Tao felt a headache coming on as she looked at the huge arena. Today is the last match. It's normal to have more people. Moreover, the results of the top 2 can be said to be almost the same. Therefore, it's still unknown who will win the championship. Lung Ruoxue explained with a light smile. In yesterday's competition, Old Man Zhao had gotten first place again. However, even if Old Man Zhao had gotten first place in the first 4 rounds, his results with the second place, Lu Xing, had never been pulled apart. And in this last match, if Lu Sheng performed well, it was not impossible for him to surpass him. Therefore, there was still a lot of suspense in this last match. Therefore, it naturally attracted more people. In the last competition, there were only 150 artificers left. These 150 artificers could be considered elites, especially the artificers who were currently ranked in the top 30 and did not belong to the various large factions. They were even the focus of the various large factions. However, before the final outcome of the competition was out, the various factions would not take action. On the arena, as the host's excited voice fell, the last match officially began. At the same time, this also meant that this year's blacksmith competition was about to end. The last match was crucial, so Mo Yen and Lu Feng, who had been absent from the previous 2 matches, also appeared together. Their appearance couldn't help but bring the excitement of the audience to a new height. The 5th round of the artificer competition was a competition of spatial equipment. The requirement for spatial equipment this time was that the size of the space was the key to determining the outcome. Please keep reading on YB0XN0VL. C0M. The size of the space was determined by the level of the void stone. Therefore, Old Man Zhao, who had the supreme grade void stone, was already higher than the others at the starting point. Even though this attracted the jealousy of many artificers, jealousy was jealousy. They could not bring out a supreme grade void stone to participate in the competition. Storage-type spatial equipment was the only spatial equipment that blacksmiths could refine at the moment. As for those with residence or higher uses, even if they wanted to refine them, they did not have the ability. Therefore, regardless of whether the blacksmiths in the competition refined rings or bracelets, they were all of this type. At this moment, on the arena, the other artificers were already seizing the time to refine their equipment. Only Old Man Zhao was leisurely busying himself. When President Lu and the others saw this scene, they were so angry that their noses almost went crooked. Boo! This Old Man Zhao was really incorrigible. President Lu couldn't help but think to himself. At the same time, he cast his resentful gaze on the old man. Chapter 1031. The Dark Canyon 3. Old Man Zhao, who felt President Lu's gaze, looked up and smiled at President Lu and the others before going back to what he was doing. President Lu was so depressed that he wanted to scratch the wall. After Old Man Zhao finished what he was doing, he started refining his equipment. Old Man Zhao placed the materials into the furnace that had already been preheated. After the materials melted, it was time to purify, shape, and finally temper. In less than half an hour, a crystal-clear bracelet was completed. At this moment, the storage equipment of the other weapon refiners had yet to be completed. When the judges saw this unbelievable scene, their jaws dropped again. Damn! What kind of speed was this? It was clearly the last to be refined, but it was the first to be completed, causing them to be on tenterhooks. What's more, even though the disheveled old man had already refined the equipment, their hearts, which were used to waiting until the last moment, could not rest at ease. What was going on? Old Man Zhao ignored everyone's gazes and extinguished the fire. Then he carried the bracelet to the judge's table and handed it to President Lu. President Lu took the bracelet from Old Man Zhao and sighed. This bracelet was really refined beautifully. It was crystal clear without any impurities. He didn't expect this inconspicuous Old Man Zhao's aesthetic standards to be first-rate. One had to know that in addition to having superb refining skills, beauty standards were also quite important for an outstanding artificer. It could be said that neither was indispensable. President Lu held the bracelet in his hand and observed it carefully. However, Old Man Zhao was getting impatient. Please keep reading on YB0XN0VL. C0M. President Lu, my storage bracelet is completed. Can I leave now? Old Man Zhao couldn't help but ask. Leave? The competition isn't over yet. You're leaving? President Lu said in disbelief. Old Man Zhao had something so important to do that he actually wanted to leave even though the results weren't out yet. As there were only 150 artificers in today's competition, they planned to produce results on the spot. All the artificers should know about this. Therefore, he really didn't expect that this old man would leave even though he knew that the results would be released immediately after the competition. Yes, I'm tired. I want to go back and rest early, Old Man Zhao said awkwardly. Sleepy? The corners of President Lu's mouth twitched a few times. He looked at the old man as if he was a monster and thought to himself, could it be that sleeping is more important than results in this old man's heart? Even though he couldn't believe what he was hearing, in Old Man Zao's heart, sleep was really more important than results. Who asked him to be so confident in the storage bracelet he refined? Unless they secretly did something to prevent him from getting first place, there was no way he could get first place. However, with Mo Yen and Lu Feng around, the probability of these people wanting to defame him was very low. Yes, I didn't sleep well last night, Old Man Zhao said very casually. But you can't leave. This is a competition after all. You can't break the rules, President Lu said helplessly. He kept telling himself to calm down. He had to calm down. All right then, Old Man Zhao said with some grievance. Then, he returned to his territory with extreme reluctance and closed his eyes. After a while, the sound of snoring came from the direction of the Old Man Zhao. Immediately, several black lines involuntarily slid down the foreheads of the judges and the artifact masters in the competition. Lu Feng, who was sitting at the judges' table with Mo Yen, couldn't help but chuckle when he saw Old Man Zhao's actions. Hee hee. Lu Feng chuckled. Is it very funny? Mo Yen rolled his eyes at Lu Feng helplessly. Isn't it funny? This old man is the first artificer who dares to sleep during the artificer competition. I like such an extraordinary person. Lu Feng said proudly. Seeing Old Man Zhao so casual, his impression of this old man became even better. How dare he sleep at such an important occasion and even snore? Such imprudence! Such a person is not worthy of participating in our Artificer Association's competition at all. He should be disqualified. At this moment, In Rume, who had been sitting at the side without saying anything, spoke up, her beautiful face still filled with disdain. Please keep reading on YB0XN0VL. C0M, Vice President In, can I say that you're jealous of Hongwa? Even if this old man is indecent and you want to disqualify him from the competition, your disciple won't be able to win the championship. Therefore, why do you have to be a villain and let others benefit? Lu Feng said mockingly. In Rume was too selfish. Even though the two of them seemed to have a conflict now, Ruhua was raised by In Rume after all. Therefore, no matter how angry In Rume was, she also hoped that Ruhua could get good results. Unfortunately, Ruhua was disappointing. Ever since she schemed against Leng Xiaoyu, she didn't know what was going on. She had performed badly in 2 consecutive matches and couldn't even be ranked in the top 10 now. In Rumai's anger immediately soared to the highest point after being provoked by Lu Feng. However, before she could flare up, she was suppressed by Mo Yan's words. We're in a competition now. Please pay attention to the occasion, Vice President In, Mo Yen said lightly. In Rume had no choice but to suppress her anger when she heard Mo Yan's words. However, it didn't feel good to have fire nowhere to vent. However, she also knew that with Mo Yen around, he wouldn't let her lose her composure at such an important occasion. She also knew that she had to control it, so she could only sulk alone. 3 hours passed quickly. The 150 artificers on the arena completed their refinement. Next, they waited for the results. The judges divided the work and worked together. In less than half an hour, the results of the blacksmiths were out. After that, they handed the results of their evaluation to Mo Yen and Lu Feng for the final review. As for In Rume, she was ignored by the judges. After Mo Yen and Lu Feng checked some of the equipment, they nodded in satisfaction. Then, President Lu announced the results of all the artificers on behalf of the Artificer Association. Old Man Zhao did not disappoint and once again took the first place. At the same time, he also won the championship with the first place in all 5 rounds of the competition. There were definitely no more than 10 people in the history of the Artificer competition who won with such a complete victory. Chapter 1032, The Dark Grand Canyon 4. After the competition, forces came to visit Leng Ruoxue and the others one after another. This couldn't help but annoy Leng Ruoxue and the others. Therefore, she could only tell the butler directly that she wouldn't see anyone no matter who came. At this moment, Old Man Zhao was dragged away by Lu Feng again. Leng Ruoxue stood by Leng Xiaoyu's bed and told him the good news. Cheap sake, old ancestor, Old Man Zhao finally won the championship. Leng Ruoxue looked at Leng Xiaoyu, who was lying unconscious on the bed. Unfortunately, Leng Xiaoyu could not give her any response now. Thinking of this, Leng Ruoxue's heart sank. This made her even more determined to find the black star grass. Extinct? She didn't believe that the black star grass would really be extinct. It was impossible for anything called a natural treasure to not have any means to protect themselves. Therefore, rather than saying that they were extinct, it was more appropriate to say that they were hidden. At least, Leng Ruoxue thought so. After Old Man Zhao's competition, everyone planned to celebrate. However, considering Leng Xiaoyu's reason, they did not celebrate openly. The so-called celebration was just to cover for Leng Ruoxue. While everyone was drinking and chatting happily, Leng Ruoxue and the other three used the excuse that they were about to break through to temporarily enter seclusion. Even though Mo Yen and the others were suspicious of their sudden seclusion, they didn't see any clues from Leng Ruoxue and the others' faces, so they didn't think too much about it. After all, Feng Da and the others were still here. Mo Yen, Lu Feng, and Lu Yu watched Leng Ruoxue and the other three return to their rooms and left with ease. After all, Mo Yen planned to go to the Dark Grand Canyon and the Abyssal Swamp, so they had to help him prepare. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0M. After Mo Yen and the other two left, Feng Da and the others immediately guarded the courtyard, while Leng Qingtian and Leng Ruhan took the opportunity to meet up with Leng Ruoxue. Then, the four of them turned invisible and left Flame City. After Mo Yen prepared everything and handed Leng Xiaoyu and the others to Lu Feng, he left. The Dark Grand Canyon was located southwest of Flame City, about 2 days away. Leng Ruoxue and the others traveled day and night and finally arrived at the Dark Grand Canyon 2 days later in the afternoon. Before entering the Dark Grand Canyon, Leng Ruoxue felt an extremely strong dark attribute spiritual energy rushing towards her. There were also dozens of people lingering outside the canyon. When they saw Leng Ruoxue and the others, someone immediately came forward to get close. "Ha! You guys look unfamiliar. This must be your first time in the Dark Grand Canyon." A man in his 30s said with a smile. "Yes." Leng Ruoxue nodded and didn't deny it. "Would you like to accompany us?" the man asked again. "Why do I need a companion?" Leng Ruoxue was very puzzled. She had never liked to move with strangers and it was inconvenient for her to do anything, so she really didn't have any thoughts of a companion. The Dark Grand Canyon is very dangerous. If you have a companion, your safety will be greatly increased. Otherwise, why do you think these people don't enter the canyon? It's because they aren't confident. The man explained. "Oh." Leng Ruoxue nodded and didn't continue. "How about it? Do the four of you want to accompany us? There are more than 10 of us, and our strength is above that of a mid-level god. If we add you, we can take care of each other," the man said anxiously. To be honest, it was not easy to see a stranger in the canyon, so he was very afraid that these people would be beaten to it by the other teams. Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but think to herself after hearing the man's words. This man said that his team had more than 10 people, but there were at least 40 to 50 people in front of her. In other words, the man wasn't the only team waiting to form a team here. In that case, why did she have to form a team with this man who took the initiative to come to her door? Not to mention that she didn't have the intention to accompany others. Even if she did, she wouldn't choose someone who took the initiative to come to her door. After all, she didn't have a good impression of someone who took the initiative to come to her door. However, even though you had been here before, that was a long time ago. If they could find someone familiar with the terrain here as a guide, it might save them a lot of time. Thinking of this, Leng Ruoxue's beautiful eyes looked at the others. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. C0 My team is the strongest here. You won't regret teaming up with us. The man felt Lung Ruox's gaze wandering and couldn't help but explain anxiously. Oh, then can you tell me if I travel with you and find something good, how will we split it? Lung Ruoxue raised her eyebrows and asked lightly. By the number of people, of course, the man said fairly. Numbers? Why isn't it that whoever puts in more effort gets more? Lung Ruoxue pretended to be puzzled and asked. However, she couldn't help but sneer in her heart. According to numbers? This man really knew how to plan. In this man's opinion, there were only 4 of them, while she had more than 10 people. Therefore, even if there was good stuff, it was her side who had the final say. Therefore, she thought of this distribution method. In fact, in Lung Ruox's opinion, this was clearly compensation without regard to performance, and this was what she had always disliked. What she pursued was that the more one worked, the more one benefited. Whoever contributed the most was qualified to take the most. However, the man in front of her obviously didn't think so. Lung Ruoxue sized up the man in front of her with her beautiful eyes and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. One really couldn't judge a book by its cover. He really didn't expect this man to look so amiable, honest, and scheming. Still, it didn't make much difference to her. In any case, she had no intention of partnering this man. Even if it's based on how much effort we put in, we must be the ones who put in the most effort. The man said confidently. In other words, no matter how they divided it, they would definitely take the lion's share. That might not be the case. Lung Ruoxue said with a faint smile. We have more people, so we naturally have to contribute more, the man reminded unhappily, but he couldn't help complaining in his heart. Damn, why was this woman so difficult to deal with? Originally, he thought that this woman was so beautiful and should be the daughter of a big family who came out to play. For such a young lady from a big family who was not experienced in the world, she was usually very easy to fool. Therefore, he did not expect Lung Ruoxue to be so difficult to deal with. Chapter 1033, The Dark Grand Canyon 5. I've never known that strength is determined by numbers. I really don't know where you get your confidence from. You guys will contribute the most, Lung Ruoxue said as if she was looking at a joke. There are so many of us. Can't we compare to the 4 of you? When the man heard this, fire immediately surged up and he couldn't help but roar. If I say that you can't compare, will you be so angry that you want to kill me? Lung Ruoxue asked innocently and innocently. The expression on her beautiful face was even more silly and cute. The man was very angry, very angry. However, when he saw the innocent expression on Lung Ruox's face, he actually couldn't vent all his anger. After holding it in for a long time, the man said angrily, Let's see. Don't regret it if you don't choose us. With that, the man turned around and walked away angrily. Why is this person like this? How rude. Lung Ruoxue pretended to be dissatisfied as she looked at the man's back. Schwer is so cute. The freak couldn't resist the temptation and hugged the cute Lung Ruoxue. Ahem. 2 coughs suddenly sounded. Then, Lung Ruhan said in all seriousness, Be careful of your image in public. Don't touch my precious sister. Schwer is my woman, the freak reminded him. Schwer is my sister, Lung Ruhan reminded her. Please keep reading on IB0XN0VL. Season, brother. Freak, don't be jealous. Let's enter the dark Grand Canyon quickly. Lung Ruoxue said helplessly. Yes. The 2 of them immediately nodded. Then the 4 of them walked towards the entrance of the Grand Canyon. However, before they entered the canyon, Lung Ruoxue stopped in front of the old and young. Even though Lung Ruhan and the others didn't understand what Schwer wanted to do, they didn't ask further. In their hearts, Schwer was right no matter what she did. The old man in front of Lung Ruoxue was about 70 years old. He looked like he had gone through a lot, but his eyes were extremely bright and revealed a sense of shrewdness. As for the young man, he looked to be about 17 or 18 years old. He was young and had a pair of bright black eyes on his slightly tender face. At this moment, he was looking at them curiously. Even though the clothes on these 2 people were a little shabby, they were very clean. Moreover, their attitude was neither servile nor overbearing, giving Lung Ruoxue a good first impression. Does the old man have a team? Lung Ruoxue asked with a light smile. No, we're here to guide someone else, the old man said. His voice was loud and full of energy. Oh, I wonder how much you charge? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously, but she was secretly laughing in her heart. She really got what she wanted. She happened to want to find a guide. 10 intermediate-grade crystals. The old man hesitated and said, 10 intermediate-grade crystals aren't expensive. My grandson and I are very familiar with this place. We can definitely bring you guys to find something good, the old man hurriedly added. In fact, he had already offered this price for a long time. However, others found it expensive, so no one had hired them. Now that someone finally asked, he didn't want to let go of this opportunity. Okay. Lung Ruoxue nodded in agreement. You agreed? The old man asked in disbelief. Was he dreaming? This beautiful lady agreed to his bid without any hesitation. This was really unbelievable. Can you bring us into the Grand Canyon now? Lung Ruoxue asked with a light smile. The reason why she liked this old man and young man was that they looked more honest and pleasing to the eye. Yes, Aoa, thank this lady quickly. The crystal you converted energy into is finally settled. The old man pulled his grandson over and said happily. His face was almost blooming with joy. Thank you, miss, the young man named Aoa said shyly. There's no need to thank me. As long as you can bring me to what I want, I will give you an additional reward, Lung Ruoxue said softly. Please keep reading on YB0XN0VL. C0 no need. 10 intermediate-grade crystals are enough, the old man hurriedly said. The reason he had offered this price was to earn enough money for his grandson to convert energy. Now that he had earned it, he naturally could not charge additional fees. Otherwise, he would feel guilty. Seeing the old man decline, Lung Ruoxue didn't say anything else. Then, the four of them followed the grandfather and granddaughter into the dark canyon. The dark Grand Canyon was a deep valley. The temperature inside was very low, and it was foggy all year round. It was dark and humid, so the poisonous insects and poisonous grass here grew very active. However, with the grandfather and granddaughter leading the way, Lung Ruoxue and the others easily avoided the attacks of many poisonous insects. Looking at her grandfather and grandson's familiar and calm manner as if they were walking in their own backyard, Lung Ruoxue felt that her judgment was correct. Aoa and I live nearby. We often came here to play when we were young, so we're very familiar with the environment here. Most of the poisonous insects here won't attack you as long as you don't take the initiative to provoke them. However, some poisonous insects are different, so avoid them if you can. Don't clash with them head-on, the old man explained calmly when he felt Lung Ruoxue's gaze. Okay. Lung Ruoxue nodded. Even though these two weren't very strong, they were very clear about life. Their words also revealed their indifferent and aloof characters. Miss, there's a very precious medicinal herb not far from here. However, there's a guardian beast there, so, the old man didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was very clear. What herb? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. Camphor wood, the old man said. Even though he was not an alchemist, he knew how precious camphor wood was. Unfortunately, his strength was limited, so he could only sigh at the sight of it. Now that Lung Ruoxue had done a great favor for him and his granddaughter, he was very willing to use this opportunity to tell Lung Ruoxue and the others the location of the incense wood. As for whether they could obtain it or if they had the guts to snatch the wood from the beast's mouth, it was not within his consideration. Are you sure? Lung Ruoxue couldn't believe it. How could there be camphor tree here? Normally, this place wasn't suitable for the growth of camphor trees. Even though camphor trees liked places with dense spiritual energy, there was a trace of poison in the spiritual energy here, so she was suspicious of the old man's words. Yes. The old man nodded. He had heard the name of the camphor wood from the guardian beast. Later, after he was lucky enough to escape from the beast's mouth, he specially went to investigate the camphor tree. That was how he knew how precious this incense wood was. In that case, bring us to take a look. Lung Ruoxue said with interest, and the Qingju in the bracelet kept reminding her to get the camphor wood. All right, please follow me, the old man said. Then he walked to the front to lead the way. Not long after, Lung Ruoxue and the other three followed the old man to a cliff. Through the old man's guidance, they looked up and indeed found a small tree half the height of a person halfway up the cliff. The small tree was emerald green and watery, and it was growing vigorously. Moreover, it seemed to be living very comfortably. This is the camphor tree? Lung Qingtian asked curiously. This camphor tree was too small. When would it grow into a towering tree? Grandpa, this is it, Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. Swear, is this tree still underage? Lung Qingtian asked with a face full of question marks. Grandpa, it's already an adult. The camphor tree will only grow this big, Lung Ruoxue explained with a smile. But what's the use of such a small tree? Lung Qingtian complained, feeling extremely disappointed with this small tree. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a childish voice sounded in his heart. I'm very useful, you ignorant old man, the tender childlike voice said in dissatisfaction. But who's talking? Lung Qingtian suddenly shouted. Grandpa, what's wrong? Lung Ruoxue, who felt that something was wrong, quickly asked with concern. Chapter 1034. Swear, there's a voice talking to me, Lung Qingtian said fearfully. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a child's happy laughter sounded. Hee. Who are you? Lung Qingtian couldn't help but ask in his heart. Guess, the child replied playfully. I can't guess. Lung Qingtian was a little depressed. He didn't know which brat was playing with him. It was really too detestable. Grandpa, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but say worriedly when she saw Lung Qingtian suddenly acting strange again. Swear, that voice spoke again, Lung Qingnan said as if he had been wronged. Moreover, it was still teasing him, he added in his heart. After Lung Ruoxue heard her grandfather's words, her beautiful eyes couldn't help but size up the agarwood on the cliff. As far as she knew, the main effect of the wood of camphor wood was to focus one's mind and calm one's mind. It could prevent cultivators from going crazy because of mental demons. Therefore, it was very important to cultivators. Moreover, the camphor tree was also the main ingredient in refining the concentration pill. It was extremely precious. However, the price of camphor wood had always been high. It was said that a small leaf could be sold for an astronomical price, let alone an entire stalk. Please keep reading on MIB0's novel. Moreover, according to Qingju, this camphor would seem to have developed intelligence. As such, she had to transplant this rare medicine into the bracelet to prevent others from coveting it. At the same time, she believed that no one would take more care of these precious herbs than Qingju. Grandpa, that small tree should be playing with you. Lung Ruoxue said knowingly. I'm not a small tree. A slightly dissatisfied voice sounded in Lung Ruoxue's heart. Lung Ruoxue smiled knowingly when she heard this voice. She had guessed correctly. If you're not a small tree, are you a big tree? Lung Ruoxue teased. Not really. I'm not an ordinary tree. I'm a camphor tree. The child protested. Can you transform? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. It's not that easy to transform. The child's voice seemed to be a little sad. Alas. It was a sprite's greatest desire to develop intelligence and transform. However, it was also the most difficult because it was very likely that they would be killed before they could develop intelligence or even transform. If I can guarantee that you can transform, are you willing to follow me? Lung Ruoxue coaxed, her beautiful face full of sincerity. Really? But what little tiger said about humans can't be trusted, the child said honestly. Not all humans are bad, Lung Ruoxue said weakly. These sprites were too wary of humans. However, this was also a good thing. At least they could save their lives. Are you a good person? The child asked innocently. Would you believe me if I said I was a good person? Lung Ruoxue asked in return, feeling a little speechless. This also made her even more determined to transplant this little fellow into the space because this little fellow was really too innocent and didn't have any schemes at all. Alas. I believe you, the child said very seriously. It liked the smell on this woman very much. Otherwise, it wouldn't have taken the initiative to contact them. Then come with me. I have a better place. It's more suitable for your growth, Lung Ruoxue said calmly. I can't go with you, the child said after a moment's hesitation. Why not? Lung Ruoxue was a little puzzled. Please keep reading on IB0's novel. Calm, what will happen to little tiger if I leave? He's my only friend here. I can't leave him alone, the child said awkwardly. If it wants to, it can go with you, Lung Ruoxue suggested. Really? Then will you order it around like a servant? The child asked worriedly. No, Lung Ruoxue promised. Even though she didn't know who this little tiger mentioned by the sprite was, but she would treat it the same as her other beasts no matter if it was a tree or a beast. Then I'll discuss it with it, the child said softly. After that, there was silence. Miss, this wood's guardian beast is very powerful, but it doesn't seem to be here now, so this is definitely a good time if you want to obtain it. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue and the others didn't react for a long time, the old man couldn't help but say. No need, Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. Miss, don't you want this camphor wood anymore? The old man was a little surprised. No one should be able to refuse this camphor wood, right? I want it, Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. Ah. The old man was confused. She didn't want to obtain this wood while the guardian beast wasn't around. He really didn't know what this beautiful lady was planning. However, not long after, the old man saw a black shadow pounce at Lung Ruoxue. The old man was about to speak nervously when he realized that the black shadow stopped in front of Lung Ruoxue and stared at her. Lung Ruoxue's beautiful eyes sized up the black kitten that was floating in midair and looking at her. It wasn't a cat, but a small black tiger in disguise. This little tiger's entire body was as black as satin, and a pair of big golden eyes were staring at her with bright eyes. There was still a trace of vigilance in its eyes, but perhaps it had communicated with the camphor wood, so it wasn't hostile to her. And this little black tiger should be the little tiger that Kinnan Xiangmu mentioned. Human, do you want to take little Chi away? The little black tiger asked via voice transmission. Yes, and you, Lung Ruoxue replied with a faint smile. She had always been the most loving to cute little animals, and this little black tiger's mimicry was really cute, like a kitten. Humans are too evil. I don't like humans, the little black tiger said honestly. Not all humans are that way, Lung Ruoxue said indifferently. She couldn't bring these two little fellows into the bracelet in front of outsiders. However, she believed that these two little fellows would definitely like it there. Little guy, I have a place that's very suitable for the growth of the camphor wood. It can also transform as soon as possible, and you can also live there. You will have many companions there. Lung Ruoxue coaxed again. Chapter 1035. Really? The little black tiger replied doubtfully, its golden eyes still wary. Yes, I don't lie to children, Lung Ruoxue promised. Then I'll take a look at that place before deciding, the little black tiger said a little cunningly. Even though it had never left the dark Grand Canyon since it was born, it was not stupid. Moreover, the inherited memories left behind by its parents were not for show. It's not convenient with outsiders around now, Lung Ruoxue said honestly. It doesn't matter. Just say that I'm your contract beast, the little black tiger suggested. Master, I finally found you. Then, the little black tiger pounced into Lung Ruoxue's arms and rubbed against her affectionately. The excited expression on its face really looked like it had found its long-lost master. Little tiger. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. She thought to herself, looks like this is also a black-bellied little fellow. Master, I'm tired, the little black tiger said again. Then go into the beast space to rest. Lung Ruoxue said very cooperatively. This little guy was really too talented in acting. If this was her previous world, it could definitely become a top superstar in the animal world. Then, Lung Ruoxue sent the little black tiger into the bracelet. Please keep reading on IB0's novel. Miss, is that little black cat your contract beast? The old man asked curiously. Even though he knew that he really shouldn't have this curiosity, he couldn't control it. Sort of. Lung Ruoxue said ambiguously. Not long after, the little black tiger's voice sounded in Lung Ruoxue's heart again. Obviously, the little fellow was very satisfied with its new home and agreed to follow her in the future. Immediately after, Lung Ruoxue moved the little guy out of the bracelet. In an instant, a black lightning jumped onto the cliff. In just a few breaths, the black lightning jumped back into Lung Ruoxue's arms, and a small tree half the height of a person appeared in its claws. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue thought for a moment and sent the beast and tree into the bracelet. When the grandfather and grandson saw this natural scene, they were all a little dumbfounded. Thezero, what kind of speed was this? Miss Beast was really too powerful. Miss, let's leave this place quickly. Otherwise, when that guardian beast returns and sees that the camphor wood that it has guarded for many years is gone, it will probably fly into a rage, the old man said fearfully. At the same time, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. It seemed that the camphor wood was indeed fated with this miss. Otherwise, why was the guardian beast not around when she came to retrieve it? Okay, let's leave quickly. Lung Ruoxue said cooperatively. Then, the four of them left with the grandfather and granddaughter. After obtaining the camphor wood, the sky gradually darkened. The old man brought Lung Ruoxue and the others to a safe place to set up a tent. Then, he started a fire and started cooking. Miss, just rest. Let us do these chores, the old man said apologetically when he saw Lung Ruoxue and the others attack. It's okay, Lung Ruoxue said indifferently. She could only eat and drink if she did it herself. And she wasn't a piece of trash who would starve just because there was no one to serve her. Moreover, she was a little afraid that the craftsmanship of this grandfather and granddaughter wasn't to her liking. Who asked them to be so picky? Hee, that's right. We're used to making it ourselves, Lung Qingtian said. After saying that, he took out a lot of ingredients from his ring and started cooking dinner. The grandfather and granddaughter looked at the ingredients in front of Lung Ruoxue and the others with widened eyes in disbelief. They secretly wondered why there were so many things in these people's rings. This was really too extravagant. The grandfather and granddaughter were also people who traveled outside all year round. They would also store some food in their storage rings, but it would not be as sumptuous as what Lung Ruoxue had. Moreover, most of them were mainly dry food. However, the ingredients taken out by these people in front of them were all fresh, so their reaction was so big. Don't just stand there. Come and help. Lung Ruoxue looked at the dazed grandfather and granddaughter and urged. In fact, everyone who saw the ingredients they prepared for the first time had the same reaction as this grandfather and granddaughter, so she was already used to it. Only then did the grandfather and granddaughter react and hurriedly came over to help. Not long after, a sumptuous dinner was ready. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. The two of them had never been so satisfied to be able to eat hot food in the wild. After the meal, the old and young took the initiative to clean up. Lung Ruoxue scattered some colorless and transparent powder around their tent to prevent any uninvited guests from disturbing them. After greeting the grandfather and granddaughter, Lung Ruoxue and the others went into the tent and rested early. However, resting was naturally an excuse. After entering the tent, Lung Ruoxue brought the three of them into the bracelet. Sister, Qingju appeared in front of Lung Ruoxue and the others and said softly, "What about the two little fellows?" Lung Ruoxue asked with a light smile. Her grandfather and brother were very interested in the two little fellows. In the herb garden. Qingju brought Lung Ruoxue and the others to the herb garden after saying that. In the herb garden, the camphor wood had been replanted, and the little black tiger was lying under the tree. The tree and the beast seemed to be communicating. After sensing Lung Ruoxue and the others' auras, the little black tiger raised its head and looked in their direction. "Master, you're here," the little black tiger greeted. Even though it had yet to recognize its master, Its master seemed to have called it. Therefore it blurted out without thinking. Yes, is little Chi satisfied with this place? Lung Ruoxue knew that the two little fellows were in the bracelet, so she could easily sense their emotions. Thank you, elder sister. I love this place, said the camphor wood happily, shaking its branches excitedly. That's good. Lung Ruoxue nodded. Elder sister, these are my gifts to you. With that, pieces of jade-like sparkling leaves flew towards Lung Ruoxue. Chapter 1036, Little Chi, I don't need these leaves now, Lung Ruoxue said helplessly as she looked at the small and exquisite emerald green leaves on her palm. She didn't want little Chi to hurt itself to repay her kindness. Sister, don't worry. Plants follow a natural progression. Besides, I didn't pick these leaves on the spot. I dropped them over the years and gave them all to you now, little Chi explained. Even though it was only a small tree with intelligence now, Lung Ruoxue's words still warmed its heart. When it saw that it wasn't the only sprite here, it was even clearer that its choice wasn't wrong. Elder sister was really a good person. That's good. Little Chi, you have to cultivate hard and strive to transform as soon as possible. This way, you will have more friends, Lung Ruoxue reminded. Yes, I will, little Chi said excitedly. Transformation was the greatest dream of every natural treasure. Now that there was such a good opportunity, it naturally didn't want to miss it. Little Chi, do you know where the black stargrass is in the dark canyon? Lung Ruoxue asked expectantly. I'm sorry, sister, I'm not sure, little Chi said sheepishly. He felt bad that he couldn't help his sister. It's okay. Does little tiger know? Lung Ruoxue looked at the little black tiger again. I only know little Chi, the little black tiger said honestly. Basically, there would be guardian beasts beside the natural treasures that were discovered. Therefore, once they discovered something good, they would not leave easily. Naturally, they would not have the chance to come into contact with other things. Moreover, the black stargrass was poisonous, and it did not like it. Oh! It seemed that they had to continue walking in, Lung Ruoxue thought helplessly. Little Chi, little tiger, they're my grandfather and brother. Lung Ruoxue only remembered that she hadn't introduced them when she accidentally saw her grandfather and brother's interested gazes. Please keep reading on YB0's novel. Come, he's my fiancé. Lung Ruoxue pointed at the freak again. Hello little fellows. Lung Qingtian greeted them with a smile. Hello, Grandpa stupid, little Chi said with a chuckle. Lung Qingtian was depressed again when he heard this title. Ooh, why did this little guy only know how to bully him? Previously, he teased him, and now he called him Grandpa stupid. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but laugh when she saw Lung Qingshan's expression. However, in the next second, she dragged the freak away to prevent her grandfather from flying off the handle. Bad girl, you even dare to tease your own grandfather. Lung Qing couldn't help complaining as he looked at Lung Ruoxue's back. However, his granddaughter wasn't around, so he could only turn his resentful gaze to his grandson. Grandpa, I'm not laughing at you, Lung Ruhen hurriedly said. In fact, he was secretly laughing in his heart. With that, he did not dare to stay any longer and slipped away. Seeing that his grandson had disappeared, Lung Qingtian couldn't help but stomp his feet in anger. Ooh, what a heartless little baddie. All he knew was to bully his grandfather. Little Chi, who felt Lung Qingshan's childish thoughts, couldn't help but chuckle. Little bad tree, it's all your fault. Lung Qingtian said with slight dissatisfaction. Just like that, the man and the tree kept communicating. The next day, Lung Ruoxue and the others left the tent and saw that the grandfather and granddaughter had already prepared breakfast. Miss, you can eat now, the old man quickly said when he saw Lung Ruoxue and the others come out. Oh, it smells so good. Your cooking is really good. Lung Qingtian couldn't help but praise after smelling the fragrance of the food. It's not that. It's just that Miss ingredients are good. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to make such good-tasting food, the old man said humbly. Yesterday, After Miss and the others compensated him for his culinary skills, they handed the task of cooking to him and even prepared ingredients for him. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to make such a delicious meal. Please keep reading on OIB0's novel. Don't be humble. Your skills are indeed not bad, Lung Ruoxue said with certainty. Hee, thank you for your praise. Mississippi, hurry up and eat. It won't taste good if it's cold, the old man urged. Okay. Lung Ruoxue and the others nodded and sat down at the dining table. After breakfast, they cleaned up briefly and continued on their way. After walking around the dark Grand Canyon for 2 days, Lung Ruoxue and the others led the way and found a few more valuable herbs. However, the black star grass she wanted to find was nowhere to be found. Miss, it's even more dangerous to go any further, so I suggest you don't go, the old man couldn't help but advise as they stood at the entrance of a narrow passageway. What's inside? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. That's the deepest part of the dark Grand Canyon. Besides, I don't think there's the black star grass that Miss and the others are looking for, the old man said. However, even though he said that, he was actually not very sure if there was black star grass inside. You've been in there? Lung Ruoxue asked calmly. With the old man's cautiousness, she didn't think he had been in there. No, I'm too weak to enter, the old man said honestly. But I want to go in and take a look. Otherwise, I won't give up, Lung Ruoxue said stubbornly. If you don't want to go in, I won't force you. I can pay you the reward now. Also, thank you for leading the way for the past few days, Lung Ruoxue said. We're guides. Since we brought you in, we naturally have to bring you out safely. Therefore, we can't leave you here. Otherwise, if word gets out, how will we be able to raise our heads in the future? Forget it, I'll accompany you in. However, you have to be careful inside. I heard from our ancestors that the danger there is 100 times greater than outside, the old man reminded. Okay, then let's go in. Lung Ruoxue said with a smile. She really didn't misjudge him. All right, the old man replied. Then he walked ahead to scout the way. This path was abnormally narrow. Only one person could walk on it at a time, so the old man walked at the front while Lung Ruhan and Lung Qingtian followed closely behind. Lung Ruoxue and the freak walked at the back. The young man originally wanted to walk behind, but Lung Ruoxue rejected him. She had many life-saving methods, so she naturally couldn't let a young man who hadn't undergone energy conversion walk behind to protect them. Chapter 1037. After walking for about half an hour, Lung Ruoxue and the others finally passed through the narrow path and arrived in a wider valley. The entire valley was lush green and full of vitality. Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but be surprised when she saw the scenery in front of her. She didn't expect the depths of the dark Grand Canyon to be like this. Not only her, but even the old man rubbed his eyes in disbelief. The old man didn't know what to say. This place shouldn't be like this. He had heard from his seniors that the depths of the canyon were very dangerous. However, the scenery in front of him was clearly more beautiful than any place he had been to before. Not only that, he had even seen rare sunlight here. It had to be known that wherever they went previously, they had always been enveloped by fog. Therefore, when he saw this scene, he actually felt a little uncomfortable. It seems that you can't believe everything the predecessors say, Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. As the saying went, what you hear is false, and what you see is true. If you didn't see it with your own eyes, it would be unreal no matter what. Unexpected, this place really surprised me, the old man said repeatedly. At the same time, he couldn't help but secretly rejoice. Fortunately, he chose to follow these people in. Otherwise, if he found out that this was the depths of the dark Grand Canyon in the future, he would regret it to death. Okay, let's continue on our way. Lung Ruoxue said with a light smile. Even though the scenery here was good, there would be unknown dangers, so as long as they didn't leave this place, they couldn't let their guard down. Miss, let's look over there. The old man pointed to the east of the valley. The spiritual energy there seemed to be thicker. There might be unexpected gains. Okay. Lung Ruoxue nodded. With that, They walked in the direction the old man pointed. Along the way, Lung Ruoxue harvested a lot of precious herbs. However, just as she finished picking a medicinal herb, she suddenly heard the sound of fighting not far away. Originally, she didn't want to be nosy, but a voice made her feel familiar. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. .com. Grandpa, let's go over there and take a look, Lung Ruoxue said to Lung Qingtian and the others. Okay. Lung Qingtian nodded. He had also heard the sounds of fighting over there. Even though he was a little surprised that his granddaughter would be curious about this, since it was his precious granddaughter who had made the decision, he would definitely support her wholeheartedly. Miss, let's not meddle in other people's business. It's hard to predict people's hearts. The old man hurriedly reminded her. Don't worry, I won't interfere. I just want to see if it's someone I know, Lung Ruoxue explained. Oh. All right then. The old man was helpless and could only follow Lung Ruoxue and the others. When she was still a distance away from the scene of the battle, Lung Ruoxue saw the people on both sides of the battle clearly. One of them was really someone she knew because that person was none other than Mo Yen, who had also come to the Dark Grand Canyon. However, the current situation seemed to be a little disadvantageous for Mo Yen. Even though he had the strength of a divine emperor, he could not unleash his true strength on the divine continent. Moreover, the other party had many people. Therefore, after a battle, Mo Yen did not have any advantage. Instead, he was in danger of losing. Shuer, let's go and help him. Lung Qingtian said worriedly when he saw Mo Yen being surrounded. After all, Mo Yen was the master of the Lung family's cheap sake old ancestor and had come to the Dark Grand Canyon for the sake of the ancestor. If they encountered danger here, they would feel bad. Yes, that person is our friend. Well, help him. Wait here and don't move. Lung Ruoxue nodded and said to the grandfather and granddaughter. Okay. The old man nodded. He knew his strength very well, so he naturally wouldn't puff himself up at his own cost and cause trouble for Lung Ruoxue and the others. After Lung Ruoxue settled the old and young, she walked towards the center of the battlefield with the freak and the other three. They're really shameless to bully us with numbers, Lung Ruoxue said mockingly as she stood outside the battle circle. Coincidentally, the people who surrounded Mo Yen were none other than the team led by the man they met at the entrance of the Dark Grand Canyon. Little girl, why are you here? Hearing a familiar voice, Mo Yen turned his head and asked in disbelief. As he was distracted, he was immediately stabbed and blood flowed down. Focus! Lung Ruoxue reminded Mo Yen, who was in an extremely sorry state. Why is it you again? Mind your own business or you'll regret it, the man said with a headache after seeing Lung Ruoxue and the others. If possible, he really didn't want to see these people again. Don't worry, I'm not a busybody. However, this guy's business isn't a busybody. He's my friend, so I have to interfere in this matter. Lung Ruoxue pointed at Mo Yen. Then all of you can attack together. The man roared angrily. He did not care about the few mystic gods. Please keep reading on MYB0's novel. However, he quickly regretted it. Even though Lung Ruoxue and the other three were all at the mystic god level on the surface, their combat strength was not only at the mystic god level. Since you're so kind as to invite us, we won't stand on ceremony, Lung Ruoxue said with a wicked smile. Then she gave the freak and the others a look. Immediately after, the four of them rushed into the battle circle and each found an opponent to fight. The appearance of Lung Ruoxue and the other three immediately relieved a lot of pressure on Mo Yen. However, Mo Yen was still a little angry. He couldn't help but roar in front of his opponents, "You disobedient little fellows, who let you come here?" Unfortunately, his roar was ignored by Lung Ruoxue and the others. Damn it, where did you perverts come from? The man roared angrily when he saw his subordinates die in the blink of an eye. Calm down. All of you calm down. You have to pay back sooner or later. This is something that will happen sooner or later, Lung Ruoxue said meaningfully. In fact, she had long seen that this man didn't have any good intentions. However, what she couldn't understand was how Mo Yen met them and even got into a conflict. The man couldn't help feeling angry when he heard Lung Ruox's words. However, he instantly fell straight to the ground. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.